Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Core Racing Network. Tonight, the Core GT Series has its doubleheader mid-season here, and it's at Mount Panorama Circuit down here, down under in Australia, the mountain, Bathurst, whatever you want to refer to it. It is quite a beast. It's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde track, as I've mentioned before. This thing is very tight and technical up through the mountain. And then you have the long straightaways, and you need a car that both handles extremely well, not just in the short little tight corners, but you need one that hits some high speeds and can still dance around these fast corners up at the top of the mountain, but then one that has top speed as well. So I mean, you need something that is just all around to make it around this thing, and that's what these guys are hoping to try and accomplish here tonight, as we got a nice field once again, about 22, 23 guys in attendance. And got some changes, but before we get into the changes and all the technical speak here, bring in my other commentators tonight. Carl Hamwork joined in the booth as always on Monday nights here by Dan Stein and Terry Jansen. And Dan, we'll start with you. You didn't have a chance to run the iRacing 12 hours this weekend at Bathurst, but did you have a chance to kind of pop in and watch some of the streams of these guys, and even here in practice, watch these guys go around this track?
Yeah, apparently iRacing said I wasn't good enough, which was pretty offensive, but anyway, I'll take it with a grain of salt. I did run some practice laps around this track. It's probably a good thing that I did not participate in that event. But yeah, no, I mean, you hit it right on the head there. This track is very technical, and you kind of need the best of both worlds. You need something that can handle and is nimble, but for those super long fun stretches, you need, or super long straightaways, you need that top speed. I think this is going to be an interesting night. I think you're going to see a lot of, I want to say not necessarily tight racing, but you're going to see these cars up behind each other. You're going to see them drafting up on these long straightaways, and they're going to have to be patience. They're going to have some patience all through the twists and turns. So I'm excited to watch this doubleheader tonight.
Now, Terry, you on the other hand did have a chance to compete, albeit maybe a little brief this weekend. And you got out there, and you got it out there not just to run around and get some practice laps in there, but that to actually compete. So what was your take from your first experience out there?
Believe it or not, I actually really enjoyed this track. I don't know if it's this section that was a lot like Laguna Seca on the corkscrew, or what it was about the track, but I just really liked the track. Unfortunately for me, I was looking up some information on the track before I got in the track. It probably got to my psyche, like it's been nicknamed the Blue Hell. I most certainly can understand seeing that a bump out of nowhere on a flat area where you couldn't see the bump at all took out my car and ruined the chances for my entire team.
Yeah, and unfortunately that's where team racing is really just difficult. I mean, you could have the best car get wrecked up by somebody else. You could have the best car get wreck out yourself, and vice versa. You could have a mediocre car and win the whole thing. I mean, we've been on kind of both ends of the spectrum, and it was kind of funny. I was in the race in our split, and looking later in the race, well, early in the race, we had a pretty fantastic start, and big shout out to Mark Thomas. Not in the field here tonight, and I'll get to that in a second why he's not, but he made an absolutely rocket ship of a setup for our McLaren, and the thing was just on rails through the mountain. It had a ton of speed through the straightaways. It's everything you wanted in a Bathurst setup, and it got us out to a pretty sizable lead until, unfortunately, I got a little, I guess, greedy, or just hit a bump that I didn't realize was there in turn 4 here, which is nicknamed the Cutting, and got into the wall a little bit. Didn't seem like it was much, but unfortunately, it required me to take 12 minutes of damage repair, and just really put us on the back foot. Started charging back up through there. Then once Mark got in the car, he's not here tonight because his brake pedal literally exploded. He leaked hydraulic fluid all over his floor, and he had to send his pedals back to the manufacturer. So that's why, excuse me, you won't see the 50 in action here tonight. And he's hoping to get a replacement set of pedals. Obviously, he races tomorrow night in both the ARCA and the Truck Series, trying to get a temp set until just to hold him over for tomorrow night, and hopefully he gets a quick turnaround on his actual pedals. But then he gets out of the car, obviously, and Chris Hamilton, our third driver, gets in the car, and he had a little issue with Mountain as well, and he ended up getting a pretty sizable damage to the car that required 30 minutes of repair. So that ended our race right there. So I mean, went from the the pinnacle to just parking that thing in the garage. But when we were making our charge back through, it was kind of funny just looking at the standings, and everybody in the top 10. I think the only car that qualified in the top 10 was the 8th place car still running inside the top 10, and they were 10th. Everybody else that qualified in the top 10 was 20th or further back. So it just goes to show you, it doesn't matter how good you are or even how fast you are in qualifying, the mountain's going to find you, and that's what it certainly did to us in the 12-hour event. These guys not racing for 12 hours here tonight, but they do have 2 races, 30-minute sprint race here to start off, and then the field will do a complete invert before we have our 90-minute, I guess you want to call it a semi-endurance race, considering the 12-hour was a true endurance race. But guys, what's your take on how these guys are going to try to attack these 2 races? So, Dan, again, we'll start with you. What's the mindset when you got 2 races on tap tonight?
I feel like my favorite word is patience, but I don't really know if you can get away with patience here in the first little dash that we're going to have. Only 30 minutes. If you have a bad qualifying session, which from watching these guys, a lot of these guys are going around having some pretty bum laps. You could have some pretty quick guys starting at the rear of the field, and they're going to have to make their way up through this field pretty quick. So I think just, you know what I mean, you gotta, with this dash, you can't sit back and lay back. So I think the first dash, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. I think you're going to see some really aggressive driving. I think you're going to see some guys really making some moves that maybe they shouldn't make because they have that mindset of, oh, I'm running out of time. So I think the first race is going to be really hectic, and I think that 90 minute, I think you're going to start to see the true patience come out.
So Terry, I mean, if you feel like you have a decent car here tonight, considering there are 2 races and both of them are full points races, is there any kind of strategy to try and to make sure that you have a good finish in both? Obviously, if you go out and win the first race, you're starting from the back of the field in the second one. So is there any, kind of, maybe not sandbagging strategy, but is there any strategy to make sure that you're not going to get caught up one way or another? Obviously, you don't want to finish last in the first race, to get very little, if any, points, even though you'll start in the pole the second race. But, is there any point strategy to this racing here tonight?
Well, my first thought was to sandbag it, but then you're right, it's full points for each race. With the amount of passing that is available throughout the straights on this track, most of the track is all flat. It's just up on the hill where it gets really technical. I could see a great driver finishing first on the first race, starting in the rear, and then making their way all the way straight through to the front on that second race as well, because of how much room there is for passing.
So if you guys out there have noticed one difference here tonight, there are actually several, and we'll start to go over those now, and that are the changes. The GTP class is gone, partly due to a little bit of a lack of participation, only getting about 5 drivers out here a night, and a little bit of the fact that it was going to be really, really scary for mainly probably the GT3 drivers having to deal with the GTPs here at the mountain. So the GTP class is gone. All those drivers that were in the GTP have been moved down to the GT3 Pro class, and they will carry with them 75% of their points that they earned so far for the year. We also have 3 drivers that were in the AM class that got moved up into the Pro class, and that is Brett Guzik, Pal Kaska, and Derek Sherman. Those 3 drivers are getting bumped up into the Pro class. And the final thing is, with the GTPs gone, that left an open spot for a car, so the return of the Ford GT3. And we do looks like we have 1 driver in the Ford GT3, and that is Derek Sherman. So one of the guys that got bumped up is going to be out there in that one. But we are now done with the qualifying here, and we'll get up the results here for you. And 1 second. All right, so for the pro class, again, these guys, the pro and the AM, are going to be, excuse me, starting together. So this is just within the class where they qualified. As you got Mason Smith with the top time for the pros, followed by Brett Guzik, Pal Casca, Jimmy Covert, Matt Goring, Ryan Pendicio, Ricky Hart Jr., Matt Crockett, Kevin McCann, Chris Hamilton, Derek Sherman, John Nominger are going to round out your pro class. And keep in mind that Chris Hamilton not putting in a time because he is the points leader. We'll get to that here in a second. But the GT3 AM class now is going to be Joe Hoggard with the fast time there, Dane Simpson, Curtis Kelly, Craig Potter, Abhi Vishwasam, John Crane, Tim Thompson, James Jones, David Tilford, Derek Booker, and trying to see why it's not bringing up the rest of them here. Oh, that's why, because there's only 10 of those guys. So 10 guys in the AM class here tonight for the field. But before we get you guys out there, as you see, these guys are lining up on the backstretch here, so it's going to be a quick start here. We'll get you the point standings right now as they stand with the shakeup. Again, that's going to put Chris Hamilton, he's going to stay on the top of the points in the GT3 Pro, but those three drivers of Guzik, Sherman, and Casca carried over 90% of their points with the move up. So that puts Guzik actually in second place. Mark Thomas and Matt Goring tied for third. These points right now do reflect the two drop races. So the two drop races are taken out. And then you have in the GT3 AM, it's going to be David Tilford at the top, Abhi Vishwasam, and Matt Z, your top three. And then the team standings have stayed the same, but these guys are getting ready to go, and the pace car is going to drop in. So let's get ready for some racing here at Bathurst, as we'll take you on board with the leader, and the green flag is out. We're racing here, and where's the first trouble scene going to be? I hope it's not going to be in turn one, which is literally nicknamed Hell Corner. We'll see how these guys make it through. And so far so good. And we'll also get up the track map, as it likes to disappear on us sometimes. But everybody making it through. You see a nice long straightaway that leads into turn two. And a few guys saying that they crashed, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's more of just kind of going slow to work their way through there. But good start for the majority of the field here, making it up now into what's considered the mountain section. And right here is my nemesis corner. That's where I end up losing our race, or at least starting to lose our race there in the cutting. And then up through this section here, we already have a car into the wall. And that is going to be second place in the pro. That is Brett Guzik.
Keeping it up against the wall, out of the way, all these guys.
Big incident right there. And that's going to put him, yeah, he's going to tow it back to pit lane. That's going to give a nice little buffer here to Mason Smith now, as he goes from being the overall leader in a few of the races here this year in the GTP car, jumps into the GT3 and a little bit of the same as he is starting to check out. Now got a 2-second lead over Pal Casca. But it looks like other than the 04 of Brett Guzik, this is the back of the field right here with John Crane. Everybody has made it through Mountain on the first time, and I think along with you guys and the drivers, there's a collective sigh.
Yeah, there's one thing I've learned. I think you kind of get into a rhythm here, especially once your tires warm up. You feel a little bit more comfortable with the car underneath you once you get that little bit of grip going, once you get some heat into these tires.
So Terry, with your first experience out here, what was the part of the track, or was the car, like, what was it that you maybe struggled with the most, that was kind of like really upsetting?
Believe it or not, coming down off the hill, that quick little switchback, which is known as the fastest switchback in GT racing. I can never hit that first corner. I always cut across the grass. It got to the point where I was actually slowing down way before I needed to, just because it was frustrating me so badly that I just, no matter what I could do, I could not get that hill or that corner.
There's that little incident here in the final corner as Crane just hops the curb a little bit. And some of these curbs, mainly the exit curbs, you can take in these cars, but a lot of the entrance curbs, the car just is not happy with them at all. And you see right there, some of them are pretty big. I think the biggest curb that you don't want to hit is at the top of the hill. And we'll try and show you here on board with Derek Sherman, and you just, no matter what you do, you cannot hit the exit. Looks like he's already gone through that section, so next time by we'll hop on board and show you. But it is just, it's kind of a mountain in itself, and if you catch that curb, it immediately just kind of grabs you, throws you up and over and into the grass, and it's at the top part of the mountain. It's the fastest section of the track, and it's a death sentence. I mean, there's no other way around it.
I mean, I do have to say, I'm really impressed. What are we, 3 laps in, and we've only had one car in the wall? I know we've had a couple cars get a little loose.
Oh, and right on cue.
I'm done talking.
Hey, you know, that's the same corner I was saying I have issues on.
Yeah, it looks like 2 guys going for the same real estate in the corner, and that is Vish Vassam and Derek Sherman getting together. Sherman going to get it righted back onto the track. Looks like Vish Vassam had to wait a little bit just for some of the traffic to get by before he gets his Mercedes back on track, which he does now, but that was a bit of a rough one there. And not sure what happened here as Ricky Hart coming into the pits pretty early, and not sure what's going on there. I mean, I see a little bit of scrapes on the side there, so maybe he got a meatball that he's got to come in and serve, or what exactly the case is, as he did end up coming back out. So yeah, not sure if that was something he's going to come in and use his fast repair, or what the case is. I don't see anywhere where he had an incident, so quite peculiar, unless that was a design pit to kind of go towards the back of the pack. But yeah, now another one in the top. This is your second place in the GTP or GT3 Pro, and right there, that is exactly the curb I was talking about. You cannot hit that exit curb at all. It'll either hop you over it to the right, or it'll just snap you around right like that. And we'll take a look at it one more time. And you see, as you come up over the hill here, you need to keep this thing to the inside, or you need to let the car breathe a little bit and let off the gas. You see the car already pushing out for him right there. And at the exit of the curb, you catch it, you see the back tire catches it, gets up on it, and just hard impact. So kind of interesting. I mean, these guys, I know they're not sandbagging. I'm sure they don't want to wreck, but second place and third place for the start of this race, with Guzik and Kaska both suffering the same fate. Looks like Kaska got back going again. Guzik obviously, coming into the pits and towing. But both these guys are going to be starting towards the back of or finishing in the back of this race, and therefore will start at the front of the next race. So see if the next race pans out a little bit better for them, but rough start for them right now.
I shouldn't have said anything. Everything was going great until I said something.
I mean, clearly your fault. I mean, it's always going to be the broadcaster's curse.
Yeah, 100%.
So we're 7 minutes into this race right now. The field's starting to spread out just a little bit, and hopefully everybody kind of, shaking off the nerves a little bit, because this track, if you've never been here before, it's wild. I mean, I've been here enough now that I'm finally starting to get comfortable with it, but again, that's also with a car that I feel had a fantastic setup. So you come here with these iRacing setups here. I know a lot of the guys were were complaining that the iRacing setup for pretty much every one of these cars was not fun. Even though it's the high downforce setup, they were really struggling with it. So we'll see how these guys handle the track as is. But
Taking Matt Crockett.
we have another issue.
Sorry.
Yep, it looks like a couple issues. So first, we'll jump over here to Dane Simpson, and this is coming down a very fast, tricky part of the track, and yeah, loses it. Cuts across right in front of Chris Hamilton. Does not collect him, so Hamilton gets by cleanly. And then right after that, Matt Crockett in the same section we've seen Cassidy. See, that's the other thing it can do. It can hop up on that curb and hard impact with Kevin McCann there and collects both of them. And yeah, again, as soon as you touch that curb, you're kind of on board for the ride. It's going to be a rough ride at that. But that Liquid Death mountain water machine certainly has seen some better days. He's going to try and lift that thing back down the track and get a little help there from Derek Sherman. The way it seemed, it was very close. I don't think there was any contact, but it was certainly close. And I'm sure that that 10 machine is not exactly driving well, as you see him still just kind of limping down the mountain here. But speaking of the mountain, Terry, I mean, why don't you tell us a little bit about this track? We'll switch gears here and get a little history, get a little insight with a little Terry's track talk.
I love it so much. All right, I'll be quiet.
Well, it is a really good thing that these guys are not driving motorcycles today on this track. Turn 1, Hell Corner, it's a cursed corner. There is a tree stump that's there, and it is said that if you hit that tree stump, you are doomed for death and falling. Another fun fact about this track here is actually it's a open streets, and you can drive on these streets in both directions anytime except for when it's race weekend. Of course, the speed limit is 37 miles per hour, and it is highly patrolled by the police department. So I wouldn't suggest trying to see how fast you can go there. They might take offense to that real quick. I did see also where I did see that in this year it's going to be the 2023 World Athletics Cross Country Championships. It's going to be right here, starting from pit road parking. But also, there's just a lot of fun, different things they got going here. They do have also the National Motor Racing Museum right here at this location as well.
Yeah, some of the big road races are held here too, including the V8 supercars are probably the biggest draw. I'm not sure how much you've looked into the Bathurst 1000, Terry.
Yeah, I have seen a little bit of information on the V8 supercars. I also did see that F1 was actually pulled off the track, but I have seen video of the Red Bull F1 car actually running this track last year prior to the Bathurst 1000.
Yeah, the Bathurst 1000 again is the V8 supercars, and it's kind of their Daytona 500, if you will. It's their Indy 500. It's their big race here at Bathurst, and really for the V8 supercars in general, it's kind of their big race, and it's 1,000 miles here of the mountain, and this thing is just a beast to handle, and a car that handles well. And those V8 supercars obviously got some meat on them. They got some meat on the cars and under the hood, and to drive that thing for 1,000 miles is not exactly easy. But you'll see that later in the year here, as iRacing does do that event as well. So we'll have some guys out there attempting that, and that's usually a two-man team that attempts that one too, and it's scary. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But scary fast right now is Chris Hamilton, as he's starting to move his way through the field again. Started last for the GT3 Pros, and he's up to 5th place. Terry, do you have something else?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, of course. Gary is definitely the word for this track. It has been described as a mix of Nordschleife, Road Atlanta, and Laguna Seca. Those tracks, they're all right tracks, but you mix all three of them together, and you got one poisonous combination. That's probably why they do call it the Blue Hell. And the reason why they call it blue is because Nordschleife is green hell.
I mean, that certainly makes plenty of sense. I don't know if there's any bulldozer drivers coming down the hill to make that downhill section, but it feels like it is, and it feels like they never really finished it, because that is just a fast, quick little chicane section at the top of the hill. And we'll take you on board, and we'll try and see. It looks like Mason Smith is coming towards the top of the mountain here, and we'll quickly hop on board. Again, this is where you want to stay to the inside. Do not hit that outside curve unless you're going nice and smooth. But here, it is just fast, and it is back and forth. And it looks like Mason Smith actually just kind of taking a little more precaution going through that section right now compared to what we were doing in the Bathurst 12-hour. I mean, you're flying down through there. But Mason Smith doing a fantastic job. And corner right here, we've called this for quite some time in Covert Corner, because when we first started doing these endurance events and we ran at the Bathurst 12 hours, Jimmy Covert here in the field in third place right now, that was his nemesis corner, and he just could not get through it to save his life, and he's since gotten a little bit better at it for sure. But he's in quite a battle right now, speaking of it, with the man we just talked about, Chris Hamilton, as Hamilton finally gets by him. Covert not letting him go, and he's going to go ahead and try and make the move down the backstretch here as they head into the kink and then into the S section. Hamilton fighting back on the inside. They're going to go side by side into here, and Covert's going to have to give it up, but looking back on the inside a little bit, maybe make a run here at the final corner, but you definitely want the inside here. But again, as we've seen earlier, John Crane, you cannot hit that inside curb, or that's going to send you for a loop as well. Both those guys getting through there, but move Hamilton now up to P3. And looking down at the GT3 AM class right now, David Tilford doing a good job as well, as he has moved his way up into fourth place. So both your points leaders certainly making their way up through the field, and this one from the back of the pack. So, I mean, guys, if you can do it in a 30-minute race, these guys can certainly do it in a 90-minute race.
Yeah, you might want to check back there on that 56 about maybe a minute ago. I think he got moved out of the way. I think we had a little bit of an issue between Matt Goring and Curtis Kelly.
Take a look back here.
He might have just got loose. I might be wrong.
Yep.
56 just got loose again.
Okay, overshot it. All right.
Yep, and then this just a moment ago coming up, there's turn 3. This is coming up into the cutting, and this can be a very difficult spot to get on the brakes. And that's pretty much what happened to me in the Bathurst 12-hour. A little bit less contact there for Curtis Kelly, but that's going to slide him back a few positions as he's going to fight up through the mountain. And that's a very sketchy place to go side by side. And you see a little contact right there. Yeah, that was very scary between him and Ryan Bendicio as they get back going. Now get back up here live, and again, a great drive here from David Tilford. He's one of the guys, at least as far as I know, did not compete in the Bathurst 12-hour. At least for Core, he did not, but he has certainly made his way up through the field here, and he's one of the guys I was kind of, you know, on the bubble of moving up or not from the AM class to the pro. But you know, he just basically just needs to work on his consistency. He's got the speed at a lot of tracks, and he's just got to kind of close the deal on some of them, but. It's kind of amazing, guys. We're about halfway through this race, a little bit over it, and you look at the track map, and there's cars completely everywhere.
Yeah, our two points leaders start from the rear. Both of them, as you just mentioned, working their way up.
And Hamilton looking like he's going to take another position pretty soon, as he's got his sights set on second place, and that is Matt Goring. Right in front of him, about 2.8 seconds up the road, but clearly within distance. But Mason Smith right now and Joe Hoggard certainly enjoying a nice cruise through the mountain, as Mason Smith has got a 20.5-second lead over Matt Goring, and Joe Hoggard has an 18.6-second lead over Curtis Kelly. So even with the little mistake there, Kelly is still in second place in the AM division. So again, a good start to the core careers here for both Hoggard and Kelly, as they came out 1-2 at Watkins Glen last week, and now already looking to pull another 1-2 here for the AM class in the first race here at Mount Panorama. So you may see those guys end up moved up to the pro class before this season is over for sure.
I bet it's a real confidence boost to be told that you're being moved up from amateur to pro as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously with the, not sure exactly what happened right there, as Matt Goring crashes coming out of the corner, blinks out, and it looks like when he blinked back in, yeah, right there, Chris Hamilton goes just barreling through him, and he backs up off the track to get everybody out of everybody's way, and then he jumps into the pits. But I'm wondering if that gave Chris Hamilton any kind of damage to the front end of his car. As we take a look at it once again, and he hop on board, nothing there. All of a sudden, the car is right there. I mean, I don't know about changing tires, but he may need to change the pants after that one.
That's amazing that he didn't notice that he jerked the wheel or anything when he went all, so that car was right in front of him like that.
Yeah, and looking at it, looks like it probably just kind of net coated through the car. Certainly not for Matt Goring. It sent him pretty hard through there, but yeah, for Chris Hamilton, looks like he got away from it scot-free, and that's going to move him up into second place now in the pro division. And he's got quite a hefty margin that he's going to make up. So I think at this point he's probably going to be content with the second place, all things considered, as he's got 24 seconds to catch up to Mason Smith, who is hard enough to catch up to when it's 2.4 seconds, but 24 is going to be a little bit too much here, I think, as we're 2/3 of the way through this first race already. And excuse me, we'll take I hop on board now with our other class leader, and that is Joe Hoggard, just again getting it done here and running some pretty quick times, as his fast lap time down there almost in the 2:03 range, which is pretty much flying here, especially with an iRacing setup. Mason Smith able to run a 2:03.21. Joe Hoggard is the second fastest car out there. He ran a 2:04.16. The next fastest one is the points leader in the AM class. I'm sorry, it is not, I'm looking at the wrong one. So a 2:04.37 for Pau Casca. So these guys are certainly making it do for these iRacing setups, and I haven't really seen too many issues yet. I know that's probably, again, the broadcaster's curse for some of these guys, but I mean, really just a couple of incidents with self spins, but we're 20 minutes into this race, and that's all we've had. Looking at the timing tower here, you see there's really not much going on in the ways of passing or being passed. Everybody has got some kind of a gap in between them, and the closest battle is probably between Chris Hamilton and Jimmy Covert, who Chris Hamilton just recently got past. The other battle back here with Tim Thompson trying to hunt down James Jones in front of him. But guys, what are you seeing from these drivers out here? I mean, I feel like they're driving pretty well considering everything that went on.
I'm almost nervous to talk, to be honest with you, because the last time I said everybody was doing well, they started wrecking. But I think now that everybody's kind of getting settled in, getting a groove here, I think we're going to stay clean the rest of the way.
And once again, Dan speaks, and somebody wrecks. as we look at Ricky Hart Jr. here. And this is coming into turn 1 here, Hell Corner, and actually not sure what happened, and that's kind of the second head scratcher here for Ricky Hart Jr. Not sure exactly what's going on. He pit earlier in the race and didn't understand why, and now he just kind of drives through turn 1 there and just stops. So, you know, again, maybe this is some gamesmanship, and he's wanting to start that second race from the front. Certainly, you know, is an option for these guys if you feel like you're out of it, or maybe you're out of the points here for this first race. You can go ahead and park it. I mean, there's no rules against it. It's probably not the strategy I would go with, considering you want some laps here, you want some track time, you want to feel this thing out, but you know, to each his own. So we'll see how everything plays out. But again, that leaves us with very little to see out here in regards to driving and passing around, guys. But Terry, what's your take so far?
My take so far is the next round is going to be an exciting start. We're going to have fast cars up in front with Rick Guzik's mishap at the very beginning. We're going to have fast cars all throughout the whole race, and we're going to have the slower guys grouped up in the middle. So it's going to be tough for the guys that win this race to get up to the front, while it's going to be even tougher for them to catch the fast cars that are already starting in the front. So I think nerves are going to be on a little bit of a tilt here. I think they're going to not be as settled down as they appear to be right now.
See a couple guys coming into the pits here as Curtis Kelly and Ryan Pandicio both making their pit stops. So we could end up seeing some guys try to stretch this thing out on fuel, and some guys coming into the pits. I mean, if you're somebody like Mason Smith or you're Joe Hoggard, you got such a big lead, you can kind of do either way. And I think if I'm either of those guys, I'm playing it safe and coming in if there's any kind of chance I'm going to run out, because you got that just huge advantage. You can probably get in and off the pit road and take that splash and dash before the rest of the guys catch you. But you know, for the rest of these guys, we'll keep an eye on it and see if anybody else has to come in and right on cue. Mason Smith bringing the 6 machine into pit lane, and it's a good looking Beamer right there, and it's nice and clean, exactly how you want it here for these races. He's going to bring that car in, and yep, exactly. Both class leaders are in the pits now, as Joe Hoggard now in the pits as well, right behind Mason Smith. So really not too far behind Mason as well. So I mean, Hoggard doing a fantastic job, and again, you know, just goes to show you that the speed he had coming into the series. You know, he certainly showed a lot of speed last week at Watkins Glen, and it's one thing having the speed at Watkins Glen. A lot of people know the track. A lot of people have raced there in some way, shape, or form, whether it's in the GT series or whether it's in NASCAR or anything like that. You've had some experience. You know what the track looks like. But to do it here and back it up here at Mount Panorama is definitely a different animal in itself, and doing a great job here. And nice little bounce back here for Pal Kaska. Obviously still has to come into pit lane, but he is going to file out right now. He's in second place in the pro class, just ahead of Chris Hamilton, who is coming out of the pits as well. So Kaska, the highest running up there in the pro class yet to pit. Craig Potter is right now in third place in the AM class, and he is also yet to pit as well. So a couple of these guys trying to stretch it out. I don't think they're going to make it, because you got another 4 minutes to go, so you're looking at another 2 laps of fuel that you're going to have to try and save, and unless these guys were saving from the beginning, that is a tall order.
Well, Carl, that actually leads me to what I've been kind of thinking about. I'm going to ask you this because you're the most experienced one up here. So we're sitting at about the 26-minute mark. Some guys pitted at the 25. We're going on the later half of the 26-minute part. Do you think some guys are going to play fuel strategy here in this hour-and-a-half race that's coming up?
Well, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing guys like Kevin McCann. He's back there in 6th place. You got Matt Crockett back there in 8th place. Both of those guys pit on that four, so they're good to go to the end, and they should be able to move up a couple positions here once Kaska comes in the pits. So you don't necessarily need to run this thing all the way to the end. If you know you're going to have to pit, you can take that pit stop early. Granted, McCann kind of was forced into the pits as he he got into Matt Crockett at the top of the mountain. But looks like we got some more issues here, and now the points leader in the AM class coming in has a little trip down the mountain, and it wasn't a fun trip at all. Snaps loose, and that is pretty hard impact twice into the wall. Doesn't look like it actually caused any damage, surprisingly, and gets back going. And then Brett Guzik just having a bit of a rough race here, and I mean, at this point, he may be just safer go ahead and park that car. Yeah, it looks like he just pulled over to let some of these guys go by, and he's going to be content with falling towards the back here. And he tows that thing back into the pits again, so both him and Guzik look like they're pretty much out of this race. But now we see Casca and Potter both coming into pit lane here. That's actually Casca now finally coming back off, and he's going to come back out in 5th place. So a really good bounce back here for Casca after that early incident at the top of the mountain. And Craig Potter now coming back out, and he's going to come back out in 5th place in the AM class as well. So a good job by him coming in and run that thing late. The only drivers out there yet to pit are Tim Thompson and James Jones. Those guys have yet to make a pit stop, and I mean, very interesting to see what these guys are going to do. As you see, James Jones now coming in, Tim Thompson staying out. So the reason I'm saying this is interesting is, if you can make this thing 30 minutes in this first race, the next race is 3 times that. If you can try and make that second race in 2 stops instead of 3, very interesting strategy.
That's exactly where my head was at with it. Is it possible, now you know the fuel window, is it possible to save 2 to 3 minutes in these cars?
I mean, all things considered, it very well could be. I mean, you got the whole mountain that you can kind of float down, but how much time on track are you giving up? All things considered, if you're going to have a 2 pit stop race in that second race, you really only need to take a splash and dash on that second pit stop just to make sure you're going to make it to the end. Are you going to save that kind of fuel and that kind of time? I don't think so. So I almost think the better option would be to kind of drive this thing out. I mean, you see right here, he has yet to make a pit stop, but he's back there in 7th place. So, if he comes in right now, he's probably back towards the back half of the field. So, not running in necessarily the times that he needs to make that strategy work out. And you see now he's under threat for losing another position here to John Crane, as this thing is finishing out now, and by a pretty sizable margin. It's going to be Mason Smith taking this one home, and just a fantastic job. And try and look at the.
Just went into the wall.
That's certainly not the way to get this race done here for Thompson. But Mason Smith coming out and down the backstretch now, and he's going to cruise to a pretty sizable victory here over Chris Hamilton. There you see on the inside, and is that Tim Thompson? Yeah, Tim Thompson limping down the backstretch, and I don't think he's going to make it back, unfortunately.
Yeah, right before he wrecked, I heard him say that he was out of gas.
Oh, and there you go. Okay. Can you save it? Yeah, I mean, if he tried to save a little bit harder, he could have saved to make it to the end, but ultimately not worth the gamble for Thompson in this one. But no gambling needed here for the 6th of Mason Smith. He's going to get it done in race number 1 and win for the GT3 Pro. So the winning continues here for Mason Smith. Give him a different car, doesn't matter, same result. He's going to get it done. Another incident here with Derek Sherman here coming down the hill, and you see that car already has some issues with the wing in the back, and that's certainly not going to straighten out the wing at all. As a hard impact, and that's going to spell the end of his race as well. So not a good time to move up here, I guess, for Derek Sherman into the Pro division. But finishing in 2nd place here in the Pro is going to be Chris Hamilton, Jimmy Covert in 3rd, Ryan Vadicio getting 4th, and looking to be Pau Casca in 5th for the Pro. Joe Hoggard getting the win in the GT3 AM class. Curtis Kelly doing a good job to hang on there, and he's going to finish in second. David Tilford, even with the big incident there at the top of the hill, I said it didn't look like it damaged his car, and maybe it didn't, as he's able to get that thing home in third. Dane Simpson in fourth, and we're taking a look right now and to see if Craig Potter, now coming across the line, he is going to finish in fifth, as the rest of these guys finish out their runs and finish out this 30-minute sprint race. And sprint it was. It went by pretty quickly, guys, but now this next race is literally going to be 3 times as long.
I mean, I think some notable drivers here. I mean, Tilford coming all the way up through the field in that 30 minutes. Christopher Hamilton coming up through the field in that 30 minutes. Now they're going to have to do it again.
Yeah, and I think what they will have on their side is time. You know, literally time. They'll have the time to make their way up through the field, and they won't have to maybe press in a non-favorable passing situation just to try and get it done, because you don't have the time to to wait around. But that is going to do it here for the heat race, and we will bring up the results. So for the pro division, you had Mason Smith, Chris Hamilton, Jimmy Covert, Ryan Pendicio, Pal Casca, Kevin McCann, John Nominger, Matt Crockett, Derek Sherman, and Brett Guzik rounding out your top 10. And then Matthew Goring and Ricky Hart Jr. finishing 11th and 12th. Switching over to the GT3 AM, you had Joe Hoggard, your winner by 19 seconds over Curtis Kelly, David Tilford, Dane Simpson, Craig Potter, Abhi Vishwasam, John Crane, Derek Booker, James Jones, and Tim Thompson. Guys, 30 minutes down. What are your thoughts? Terry, we'll start with you. Did we lose Terry? Might have lost Terry, so we'll switch gears. We'll go to you, Dan.
Alrighty, so, well, it's kind of interesting. So one of the dirt tracks I race at in real life, they do heat races, which I guess you could consider this first 30-minute dash a heat race. They invert the field at the track that I race at for the feature, and I guess you could consider this 90-minute race a feature. And obviously that makes it a little bit, it makes the playing field a little bit even. The slower guys are up front and the faster guys obviously start from the rear. But something that always seems to happen is the faster guys always seem to run over the slower guys. And especially at a track like this where guys are going to have different braking zones, different re-engagements of the throttle. My worry is that you're going to have the faster guys running over the quicker guys. Not necessarily being too aggressive, but these slower guys, maybe they just brake a little bit later. Maybe they get right back on the throttle just a little bit later. And I just think you're going to have some people not necessarily meaning to dump some other guys, but I think that's what you're going to see at the start of this race.
We'll take a look at it. Looks like we may have already had an incident here, and trying to bring it up here, and not sure if it was an incident or what the case is. It looks like, actually not the case at all. It looks like the 11 of John Crane and the 616 of Craig Potter starting from pit lane. Not sure where Ricky Hart Jr. is, so I guess the saga continues of what's going on with Ricky Hart Jr. here tonight. But up front, it is Matthew Goring leading Brett Guzik and Derek Sherman. That's your top 3 for the pro division. Derek Booker leading the AM division right now over Vishwasam and Dane Simpson, as these guys come down through the mountain for the first time, and everybody just trying to get those tires up to temperature, get those brakes up to temperature, and again, just trying to calm the nerves. Already passed.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say already passed for the lead here as Brett Guzik going to the inside, going to try and make the pass. And looks like Derek Sherman going to try and follow him through. Keep an eye on this. Looks like there was already incident.
Thompson got pushed to the wall.
Yeah, we'll get back to that in a second, as I do see the crash that has happened. But Guzik and Sherman both go through Matt Goring here as a bit of a 3-car breakaway here to start this second race. And up here at the top, looks like James Jones just kind of limping down the mountain here and trying to let everybody go by. And it looks like Tim Thompson might have just gone to the outside there and scraped the wall to try and avoid him. And then Vishu Vasim also had an incident, and it could have been the same situation. We'll take a look here, coming down. And now that is going into, again, what we nicknamed Covert Corner, and rough little spin right there into the tire barrier, into the wall for Vishu Vasim, and that caused him to tow that thing back into pit lane.
Tim Thompson's in pit lane as well.
Out front, it is Brett Guzik, followed by Derek Sherman and Matthew Goring.
Yeah, my theory was is if I said that everybody was going to crash, they wouldn't. Because every time I said nobody's crashing, they seem to crash. And so far, my theory seemed to pay off a little bit.
How about that? Dan Stein talks and nobody crashed. We'll give it a few seconds. We'll give it a few seconds. Don't count it quite yet, ladies and gentlemen. But speaking of Stein, I think it's about time for your little segment here as we just get started on this second race here, about 4 minutes into the endurance race, and it's time for a little Stein spec speak.
Alrighty, now we got all those S's out. Alright, so the two cars I'm going to be comparing today are going to be the BMW and the Audi. First thing I want to go over is dry weight. So the BMW has about 2,833 pounds, and then the Audi, I'm going to find it in my notes here. The Audi weighs about just under 2,800 pounds. So the weights between the two vehicles are about the same. The Audi runs a naturally aspirated V10. So per crank rotation, you're having a lot more combustions than the water-cooled inline-6 of the BMW. The benefit to having an inline-6 is a dual overhead cam, so that's 4 valves per cylinder, and there's only 2 cams. So it's a lot less moving parts for almost similar types of power. So the inline-6 in the Beamer is turbocharged, so you use some type of forced induction versus the naturally aspirated V10. So your V10 is obviously more mass moving, so you're not going to have crazy RPMs, but having more combustions per crank rotation, you're going to be able to spool up a little bit quicker, so you're going to have a slightly better launch off the corner. The benefit to having a inline-6, as I said, is one, less moving parts, and it's a little bit lighter. You're going to have some lag of the turbochargers waiting for them to spool up, but because you have less mass you have to spin, that turbo lag should not be that crazy. So you're going to see the BMW with higher top speeds, and then you're going to see the V10 with a bit of a better launch off the corner with having those RPMs spike quicker and having more torque with the V10. Other than that, the cars are pretty similar. Weights are right in line with each other. The displacement, obviously, there's going to be a big difference between an inline-6 and a V10. Obviously, one's turbocharged, the other one's naturally aspirated. But other than that, I think you kind of have both ends of the sword, I guess you could say. You have the top speed of the V10. You have the quick launch of the V10, and then the top speed of the inline-6. That's about all I know on these cars.
And while we were discussing that, looks like Pau Casca having another incident in the same location here as the top of the mountain, not being kind to the 21, as this time he hooks it and spins to the inside. He does get over and gets out of the way of everybody coming through there, so the fact that he didn't get any additional damage there may help him out in this race. And it looks like I'm not seeing really too much to the front of that 21 machine, and he's going to be able to keep that thing going and hopefully make a charge back up through the field and keep that thing pointing the correct way for sure is what he wants to do here. Obviously, this guy's got a fast repair, but you don't want to use that fast repair, certainly this early in the race. We're in the 7 minutes into the race right now. But out front, it is still Brett Guzik by a 1.5 seconds right there. You see the distance over Derek Sherman. And then you got another 2.5 seconds roughly back to Matt Goring in third. Kevin McCann in fourth. Those guys are all in the Pro Division. And then you have the 2 guys in the GT3 AM, and already the guys that finished in first and second in the AM for the last race. Curtis Kelly finished second. He is now first in the AM, and Joe Hoggard finished first. He is in second in the AM. So these guys clearly showing that they're probably outclassing these guys, and they probably should be moved up here to battle with the rest of them. But as it stands right now, putting on a good show. Chris Hamilton, your points leader, right there behind them. He is in 5th place in the Pro, followed by Dane Simpson, who is 3rd in the AM. So kind of going back and forth through the middle of that one. And then behind Dane Simpson, literally right behind Dane Simpson, is Mason Smith, trying to go back-to-back in his GT3 Pro debut, I guess you want to call it, here later in the season. Another incident here as we hop over with John Crane. This is coming down the mountain into Dover Corner, and back end just snaps on him a little bit, and gonna back into the wall. It looked like the wing got damaged a little bit there for a second, and trying to use the grass to get spun around there, and the thing just does not want to spin around for him. So he's going to have to Austin Powers this thing around and finally get it back straightened out. Looks like maybe the left rear banged in a little bit on that car, so we'll see if that causes any kind of terminal damage, and he's got to bring that thing in the pits. Looks like he's going to keep going for the time being.
So, okay, Jerry.
Yeah, that's going to be scary having that car sideways in that corner. I remember during the event that I was in, I came around that corner, there was a car sideways. I managed to move just so I wouldn't get him. But then I watched the next 3 cars pile straight into him. I think that was my biggest Yahoo moment when I managed to figure out how to squeeze right in between the wall and then back into that guy's car.
Yeah, with you guys, I mean, I know I ran a little bit of practice laps, but you guys have obviously done a lot more on this track. As we get into this 1 hour and 30-minute session here, do tires become, a bit of your thought process? What's kind of the situation with tires?
So at a track like Daytona, it's actually a benefit for not taking tires. Once they changed over the pitting here for iRacing, it used to be that they fueled the car and then you took tires, or vice versa. I forget exactly which order it went, but it didn't happen at the same time. They've since changed that, and it actually takes tires at the same time as refueling. So it gives you the option of taking tires, and in fact, when it comes to a full car, a full load car, you're actually getting your tires done, and you're waiting a pretty decent amount just to get the rest of the fuel in the car. So if you want to change tires, you certainly have the time to, and it's going to be the fuel you're waiting on anyway. But at Daytona, it was actually a benefit to keep those tires on, because on fresh tires, the car just, danced around a little bit too much. It didn't actually like the cold, new tires. It actually liked the newer tires. So there's going to be some tracks where it benefits you to actually keep on those used tires, as they just have a little better grip. Here, I don't think that's the case. I think you always want to take fresh tires. We did in the 12-hour event. Now, granted, we're going literally twice the distance in a stint than these guys are, because these guys only have 50% fuel in the tank. So I'm sure at the very least you're not going to see these guys take tires on their first pit stop, but you may see them take tires in the second pit stop.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. Yeah, I know from running the GT3s on other tracks, that it takes a couple laps for these tires to warm up, and then once they warm up, you really get into a groove here. How many laps do you think these guys will run before they actually start feeling the tire fall off?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that it feels like the car gets better throughout the run. It's going to get to a better point, and then once it gets towards the very end of that run is when you're going to really start feeling it. So these guys went about 11, 12 laps on the on their first race there before they made their pit stops. But you're going to need at least twice that to really get through an actual fuel run, an actual full tank fuel run, and run 2 full tanks or 2 half tanks here at this track.
13.
But
13 to 56.
I would say probably around the lap maybe 20 mark is where the tires are going to start getting to the point where they're just not as fun to drive on. So that's where I'm feeling like that second pit stop around like lap 24 or so is where you're going to see these pit stops happen. But we had certainly a few incidents happen. Take you back earlier and show you why Derek Sherman is in the back of the pack now for the GT3 Pro, as he was running second place when he had another rough incident coming down the mountain and losing his rear wing there. And unlike Sebring, there's no fishing pole to reel that thing back in. He gets that Ford spun around, and gotta give it to him, he's the only one brave enough to run that Ford here in the opening event, bringing the Ford back here. But yeah, you see right there, the car is not going to handle too well without a rear spoiler on it, so he spins it twice and has to pit. And then we take down at Joe Hoggard, winner in the first race, and he was leading in the in the AM class here before this little incident right here, and he parks it in front of the field. And good on all these drivers for avoiding that, as that was not easy at all. And we'll take a look on board as Hoggard still trying to get back going here. And again, just kind of Austin powered himself right here too. It's just a terrible position to get caught up in. And you see that thing is just they get around these corners, these tight corners, so easily. But yet when you see him trying to turn around, it's like that thing has just no turning radius whatsoever. It's kind of crazy. But take a look on board here with Jimmy Covert coming down through here, and what this looked like on board. Coming through, and you see this just kind of blind going through the corner, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a car, by the way. So great job by all those guys avoiding that, coming out. There's a lot of blind corners here because of the trees, because of the walls. But these guys do a good job avoiding the 13 right there. And unfortunately, looks like Jimmy did not avoid an incident here, as running behind Mason Smith here. And he's going to get into the back of Mason Smith and then into the wall hard. Kevin McCann able to get around him. As we'll take a look on board with Kevin McCann here. And Covert maybe just going to scrape the front fender of that thing, but it looks like Mason Smith gets a spun around as well. So just maybe a situation like you talked about earlier, Dan. Some of these guys breaking a little bit earlier than maybe the guy behind realizes, and looks like Covert got into that corner a little bit deeper than Mason Smith and caused both of them to get in an incident there.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say that. If you look at their brake lights, definitely the car in front there braked just a little bit later than the one behind it. I think they just simply ran over each other. I don't think it was anything intentional or belligerent or anything like that. It's just a product of that tape racing.
So with all that action happening, Hoggard falls down into 5th place in the AM standings. You have to crawl back into this one. But in the meantime, it is Curtis Kelly back out in the lead for the GT3 AM. 8.8 seconds back is David Tilford, as he follows the guys that just had the incident there. He's right behind Jimmy Covert. And then in 3rd place in the AM class is Dane Simpson. So a good little bounce back race here for Dane. But out front overall, it is Brett Guzik certainly having a better race here in this one, as he is getting all kinds of pressure here. It looks like Derek Booker behind him trying to get a lap back here. Maybe he just got lapped. But Brett Guzik out there to a 13.5 second lead over Matthew Goring, who is now just coming down into the S-turn here. And then Chris Hamilton just coming down the hill, so a pretty decent gap in between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd here in the Pro class. And then Don't look now in your rearview mirror, Chris, but Mason Smith is on, speaking of that, on the hunt. As it sounds like Dan's dog is on the hunt as well. But Mason Smith up into 4th place.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
My mute button's broken. I knew he was going to do that. What the heck? Sorry, guys.
All good, buddy.
It was right on cue.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
That's what it was. He's like, I'm going to help out. My apologies.
So we'll have to add Dan's dog to the broadcasters for next week and make sure he gets his due. But Mason Smith just turning the fastest lap in the race at last lap with a 2:03.74. So he is on the move. Right behind the AM class leader right now, Curtis Kelly. So how does Kelly approach this right now? Again, I know these AM drivers aren't racing the pros and vice versa, but you know there's a lot of just pride and bleep talking that these guys want to do as an AM driver beating a pro driver, and certainly Kelly would like to keep that 6 machine behind him, but you may have to look at the bigger picture here and secure that nice lead that you got right now over David Tilford in 2nd, and just let this 6 go by and keep beating the guys up in front of him. Looks like Derek Booker had an incident here, and this is right behind your leader, Brett Guzik, as they're coming up through turn 3 and 4. And yeah, just hooks it to the inside wall right there. Luckily, nobody else was coming. Nobody else is anywhere close. Gets that thing back going. And now we do see that Mason Smith has passed Curtis Kelly. Again, not for position, but that now makes the top 4 GT3 Pro drivers, and Mason Smith is in 4th place, 1.9 seconds behind Chris Hamilton. You see the gap right there. And the one guy that did not want to see the little shakeup here, especially with the GTP drivers moving down to the GT3 Pro, is Chris Hamilton. He was having a fantastic little run by himself in the class, and won a couple races. But now, as you see, Brett Guzik gets moved up from the AM class to the Pro. He's leading. You got Mason Smith, who gets moved down from the GTPs. He won the first race, and now he's right on his heels. So Chris may go from being king of the mountain to everybody trying to knock him off that mountain.
He's got an 18-point lead right now over Brett Guzik, and then Mason Smith, he's got a 25-point lead, so he's got a little bit of a buffer. I mean, obviously that win of Mason Smith is certainly not going to help him, but Brett Guzik did have a pretty tough race last race, so he's probably still got a decent point leads over him.
Yeah, we take a look back at the results for the GT3 Pro in the heat race once again, and see Hamilton did get the 2nd place there, and obviously Brett Guzik having those issues, finishing all the way back there in 10th place. So he's going to lose little points to Mason Smith for sure, but the fact that he drove all the way up through the field there and got 2nd was a big bonus for him. Clicking the wrong button about 100 times. There we go. Back to the standings here. So we are now 20 minutes into this race, just about 21 minutes into this race. Still got a good portion to go. Still got an hour and 10 minutes left in this race. So I'll throw it back to you again, Terry. When it comes to your team, when you got out there, this was, correct me if I'm wrong, this was your first experience in an endurance race?
Yes, it was my first GT endurance race, and it was quite entertaining learning bit there going on with that. Of course, trying to get accustomed to sitting behind the wheel for long periods of time and keep your body from getting too tight. When I wrecked the car, I think it was a combination between the bump in the road that caused me to go over, plus And of course, that probably allowed my judgment to slip by a fraction of a second, which ultimately caused me to wreck.
So, take me into your mindset. You know, your first endurance race. It's one thing knowing that, you know, hey, this is going to be just a long night for me. It's going to be a long night of racing. But it's a completely different mindset. I mean, you got 3 guys, you know, for a 12-hour event. Sometimes you're upwards of 6 guys when it comes to the 24-hour event, all driving the same car. And you know, if you have an incident, you wreck it, you know, or on the other spectrum, you do well. You're doing that for not just you, but, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 other guys on the team. So, you know, does that kind of change your outlook to how you're driving? Do you feel like you drove a little bit differently, knowing that, you know, if you wreck the car, you're wrecking it for 3 guys, not just 1?
Yeah, right away when I sat down behind the wheel, well, even prior to that, even during practices, I kept thinking, okay, I can't drive like I normally drive, because normally I'm a hot mess. I gotta settle down, I gotta relax, I gotta remember that this is for the other guys as well. And it didn't help right when I turned on the screen, the first thing I see was a teammate spinning the car. It probably tensed me up a little bit. I did have a couple of small incidences almost right away when I got in the car, after waiting 26 minutes from the meatball that was occurred as I turned on my screen. Then once I got to the point where I was like, okay, calm down. Once I calmed down, the car was moving faster. I was putting in times faster than all of my practices. And then just one little spot, and it got me hard.
So I think the other thing that's kind of big is you get a chance to do some spotting. And it's one thing that I feel like, you know, we get a chance to kind of do that a little bit up here in the booth, where you kind of watch the race instead of being in the race, and you get to see a lot of things that you may not normally see excuse me, when you're driving in the car. But when you're spotting for somebody, you're spotting for your teammates in this case, it gives you a little bit different perspective too. So did you have a chance to do some spotting for the team?
No, I didn't get a chance at all. Originally, one of the teammates was supposed to take over, and I was supposed to be sitting and watching for an hour, but he was ill. So he asked if I would go ahead and take a stint for him. And of course, right as I turned on my screen, there we are, collecting a meatball. So I got to spot the meatball.
There you go. Pass here for 3rd place as Mason Smith going to get it done. Excuse me, over Chris Hamilton, and move Mason Smith now up into 3rd place, as both of these guys still trying to chase down your top 2, who look like are going to switch up now, as Matthew Goring into the pits for his first pit stop here on lap 13. Looks like the same for Chris Hamilton there in 4th place. So pit road about to get busy here, as we did have Joe Hoggard there towards the back. He came into the pits on lap 11 as well. So Dan, I'll ask you, I mean, the next race on the calendar for endurance racing is the Sebring 12-hour. Have you had a chance to run Sebring at all? Do you own the track? Is it a track you're maybe looking at trying to get your license up so you can run that one? Or is there another one on the horizon you're looking at?
Well, when I originally found out that I wasn't good enough for the racing to run in this event, I jumped into a couple road official races. And in real life racing and iRacing, I have 0 patience. But when I first started those couple official road races, I was like, all right, I'm not going to qualify. I'm going to start at the back. I'm just going to go nice and slow, maybe 0x, so I can increase my license. And that lasted about maybe 2 laps. And then I remember updating this girl. I took her out go-kart. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to be the good guy. I'm going to let her win. Yeah, that lasted about half a lap. And then in my real life racing, I always tell myself, hey, just make sure the car gets on the trailer. And as soon as you shift in the third year, you're whipping around that track, that whole patience mindset for me just goes completely out the window. I don't know what it is about it. I always yell at myself before and after. I twisted a ton of metal this year in real life doing it, twisted a ton of metal in iRacing doing it. But I genuinely enjoyed learning road racing. Growing up, I was an oval fan, local dirt tracks, NASCAR, anything like that. But just the strategy, the different lines, the different braking zones, the different ways of decelerating the car, the different ways of accelerating the car. It's not something you really see in oval track racing. So that obviously didn't.
You're past the car sideways on the hill there. Sorry about that interruption.
Go ahead, Dan.
No. Who got loose here?
Looking at seeing a incident here, and yeah, John Nominger spins it around and backs up in kind of a really tight section of the track here.
Yeah.
And yeah, a little Austin Powered there as some of the cars coming down here. And it's one of those things where he did do a fantastic job when other cars were coming down there, that he stayed in his spot. And that's what you have to do, especially in some of these tight sections of the track. You need to stay where you are so you're predictable. So, all the drivers that are coming up behind you aren't going to T-bone you because you're backing up, you're going forward, you're on one side of the track, you're on the other. And he stayed where he was, let the other cars go around him, and then he backed up and got it going. But looking at now at the front of this pack and coming out together, Chris Hamilton and Matt Goring from pit lane, and Hamilton all over the back of Matthew Goring. And this could end up being the battle for third. And actually, it is, because everybody in the top half of this field has made their pit, and the rest of them coming into the pits now. So, getting back to you, Dan, is it something that you're going to try and do? You're going to try and work on that license to get yourself up and ready for some of these road races coming up. And obviously, the Sebring 12-hour is kind of a special event in itself. A lot of history, a lot of lore with the Sebring 12-hour in real life, and it's certainly a different animal that you're attacking here in the iRacing 12-hour. But the track, very bumpy, very technical, and kind of almost a miniature Bathurst in layout. Maybe not necessarily the elevation change that Bathurst has, but just a lot more bumpy and technical. Have you had do you own Sebring? Have you had a chance to get out any laps on Sebring?
I do not own Sebring. I haven't had a chance to do any laps, but I have been working on pulling up my license. Hasn't been going too well. I'll gain 0.2 of a point just to lose 0.3 the next race. But with that being said, I think it would be really good for me. Because when I do all my types of racing, whether it be real life or iRacing, it's my own car, it's my own equipment, it's just me. You know what I mean? If I have some other people that I'm not necessarily responsible for, but that I'm working with, having that teammate philosophy, I think that will force me into being patient. So not only do I think I'll learn to be a better driver, learn more about road racing, I think I'll learn to be a better person. I think I'll be able to build some patience because I have these other people relying on me. I almost have to. So I'm definitely going to continue to work on my license because that is definitely something I would like to explore.
Yeah, and it certainly does help when it comes to spotting, and that's what I started talking about with Terry. Is the spotting aspect is very big. It's not just looking behind to see if anybody's coming up from behind and what lines they're running. It's not just looking ahead to see if there's an accident or anything like that, but it's coaching. It's coaching throughout the lap to calm the driver down, or let them know hey, you can take this a little bit deeper, or you can brake at this point or turn in here. It's kind of in-race coaching, and it's especially helpful when that coach maybe just got off the track. They just got out the car, and this is what they're feeling. Hey, the car's a little bit tighter right now because the track temperature's going up, so be careful when you come out here and try that out. It's things like that can be really, really helpful, and it's in real time, essentially. Like I said, if they just got out the car, or maybe you're the one now just getting out the car and becoming the spotter, it's a very big role, and it's almost as important as the driver. So you know, you certainly you want to have your schedule set up that you know who's going to be driving in the car for those 12 hours, or at least an idea of roughly when people are getting in and out of the car. But you also want to make sure that you have a spotter for each of those time slots as well. So you know, team racing there's a lot of moving parts, but I want to give a shout out to everybody that's out there watching. Thank you for tuning in here tonight and you know, watching these guys take on just a well, no other way to put it, but a mountain of a track. It's a fantastic layout here in Bathurst, Australia. So we hope you like what's going on out there. Shout out there to Barry, I was tuning in here. Kevin Foster, I see out there. Curtis Williams rooting on Mason Smith. Matt Crockett, he had a little bit of an incident, so it looks like he's taken to the screen time here instead, at least for a little bit. But you know, so far so good. These guys are now a third of the way through this race. So basically, they have their sprint race done in this race, and now they got an hour left in the race. So what are you guys looking for? I mean, is it really just watching these guys, you know, kind of click off laps and try to be as safe as possible, and then just, you know, one more pit stop to finish this thing off?
Is in front of you, but I don't think, pending any major catastrophes, I don't think you're going to really change many positions. So if I was in these guys' shoes, my mindset would just be keeping the car clean, putting down decent lap times, and just bringing it home.
Barry, what about you?
Yeah, the middle of the race, it's time to put the car on cruise control, sit back and relax, because you know that in the last part of the race, if you're going to try to advance your positions, that's where you definitely want to make sure that those count. So right now, I'd sit on cruise control, relax, enjoy the view and the race as I'm going along, and then once that right after the next pit stop comes, put it all out there and run it hard.
Yeah, and I mean, that pretty much, you know, hits the nail on the head. It's what you need to do in these type of races. The beginning of the race, the start of the race, everybody's bunched up. You know, in the endurance races for iRacing, you had, you know, 50, most words of 60 cars. Here, these guys had over 20 cars all grouped together right there at the start. It can be chaotic. It can be scary. It can be, you know, all the above to start this thing, and you really need to be careful getting through the first couple laps. But then once it settles in and you get, you know, 10, 15, almost 20 laps into this race, you see the track map. Everybody is pretty spread out, and now is the time, like Terry said, you know, fall into a rhythm. Get comfortable and just kind of relax in the car, and, you know, the chaos for the time being is over. It's just, you know, once you catch up to that group of cars, whether it's lap cars or whether it's cars for position, if you catch back up to a group again, then obviously, you know, you kind of sit up in the seat a little bit, white knuckle it a little bit once again, and try and you know, try and make your way through the chaos. But you know, for the most part, you're not going to be around 20 cars once again. It's going to be all out and just car control. It's very, very much car control and just being smooth with every transition, because these cars, you know, may have a lot of downforce and you know, they're running a high downforce setup, but if you're not careful, we've seen a lot of guys, even your top guys here, just loop it very easily, very quickly. And while we're talking, I was gonna say, while we were talking here, we had a couple more incidents here. Ryan Pendicio coming up, and again, this is one of the corners to watch for, the cutting here in turn 3 and 4, and yeah, just hard impact there for Pendicio coming up into turn 4. Looks like he's gonna get that thing back going, but that certainly must have damaged that car. And then Kevin McCann, as he heads down the mountain, just a little trouble getting that thing slowed up, and for all intents and purposes, looks like he does a good job keeping that thing off of the walls, off the tire barriers, off of any other cars, and gets back going. So a pretty smooth spin right there, but he does end up towing it into the pit lane there. Dan, you had a question for Terry? Dan, are you there?
This mute button's making me angry. I'm just talking.
There you go. He's back.
Now, my question for you, Terry, was, so you said you want to put the car in cruise control. Do you want to be behind a car kind of following him through, or do you want to be so far away that you're basically running practice laps?
I would probably be back just far enough because as you notice, a lot of the incidents are happening right there at the beginning of the hill and right there at the end of the hill. I want to make sure that there's enough room that a local caution flag will give me something to know that if I go around that corner too fast, I might be ending my race.
Okay, all right, what about you, Carl?
I think for me, being nice and smooth and being on cruise control is I need something. I need some kind of rabbit, whether it's a car in front of me, whether it's a time that I'm looking at, and it might not be that, a rabbit that I'm trying to hit a faster lap and then a faster lap and a faster lap. It might be, okay, I'm going to run in, the low 203s. For instance, with these guys' pace here, I want to make sure that I'm consistently in those low 203s. If I can crack a 202, great. I hit every mark on that lap, but I'm not trying to push it too hard. I'm trying to just make sure I'm nice and smooth, keeping the tires underneath me, and not trying to slip at all. Under braking, not trying to slip through the corners, and scrub those tires. Regardless if I'm going to need tires, take tires, or anything like that, the cooler you can keep those tires, the better it's going to handle throughout the whole thing. Because these cars are just like any other car. If you get them a little too hot, especially where they're not expecting to be hot, it's going to drive like crap for the next couple corners, maybe even the next couple laps. So you really have to be conscious of keeping those tires at the right temperature throughout the whole thing, and driving smooth will help you do that.
Okay, all right. It's a little difference of opinion there. I personally, I have to follow somebody. I do not want to be following somebody. I want no cars anywhere near me so I can focus on the track and hitting my marks. If I'm behind somebody, it's a problem that I have. I am watching the car in front of me. I'm not watching the track. So I'd much rather be nobody near me. Let me focus on the track and let me put down some decent lap times.
Yeah, and you can get into a nice rhythm following somebody on an oval race. It's one thing getting in behind somebody and kind of hitting your marks and running an oval race. In an endurance race, maybe in the sprint race that we had earlier, the 30-minute race, you can kind of race the other drivers. But once you get out here over an hour, these guys out here now for an hour and a half, and for the endurance race, the 12 hours and 24-hour races, you're not really racing anybody else. You're racing the track. You're racing, and trying to hit your marks every single lap. And if you pass somebody that lap, great. If you lose 5 positions, it is what it is. But your most important thing is keeping that car pointing the correct direction and clicking off laps, clicking off the time, and getting that thing home. Because regardless if you're fast or not, you could find out that you're 10 seconds off pace every lap. But if those guys are running too hard and getting incidents, you could be the winner. And vice versa. If you're just out there pushing too hard because you're trying to get to the lead, you're trying to get to the front, and you make one little mistake, your race is over. So at this point in the race, we're 40 minutes in now, and we've still got another 50 minutes to go, but it's right about that halfway mark. So I think it's about time that we give you guys a little break from hearing us and crank these guys up and give you a little love to hear it. taking you on board with some of these guys driving around the mountain, and you get a little glimpse of what these guys are looking at from lap after lap, and how quick these turns come at you. And talking with the guys during our little break there, and it's one of those tracks where, you know, just like any other one, you need to figure out the flow, and you need to really go with the flow on this track, and every corner sets up the next corner, so you need to make sure you get an exit out of this corner to set up the entrance to the next corner, and so on and so forth. Obviously, you get to Forest Elbow right here, the last corner before it sends you down the long straightaway, and it's not necessarily to set you up for the entrance of the next corner, but it's to set you up for the entrance of the longest, fastest straight on the track. So, you know, everything flows into each other, and you really need to hit all the sections correctly. But as of right now, excuse me, the guys in the track the best. I mean, Brett Guzik has certainly turned it around from that sprint race and doing a lot better here in the endurance race. He's got a 15-second lead over Brett Guzik. As you see right there, that was going to be my next point, is we're getting close to the second round of pit stops here, and you see Ryan Pandicio bringing that thing in. But again, Guzik out there to a nice lead over Mason Smith and Chris Hamilton in third place, Matt Goring in fourth, Jimmy Cover in fifth, Al Casca in sixth, Ryan Pandicio, John Nominger, Kevin McCann, Derek Sherman, your top 10 in the pro division. And then in the AM, it is Curtis Kelly by 8 seconds over Joe Hoggard. You've seen him make the pass during our Love to Hear It section on David Tilford to get himself back up into second place, as Tilford in third, Simpson fourth, Potter in fifth, and then you got Crane, Jones, Thompson, Booker, and Vishwavasan rounding out your 10 in the GT3 AM class. But these guys getting ready for their second pit stops, and it's shaping up that these guys are going to need, excuse me, not just one but 2 pit stops to finish this thing out, with possibly a gas and go needed to finish this thing out. But before we get into that, David Tilford has closed back in on Joe Hoggard, and here is the reason why. Coming down the mountain, another incident here, kind of a pretty significant hit into the inside wall there, and not sure if that damaged the tires or not. We'll see if Hoggard needs to come into the pits, and it looks like he indeed does. So, I mean, it's around the time you have to pit anyway, so, you know, maybe not necessarily a scheduled pit stop, but it's going to work out as a scheduled pit stop for the 13, but that was a bit of a rough impact there. Hopefully he's got a fast repair that he can still use to get that thing back out there, but that could certainly cause some wheel damage. It allowed the 12 car of Tilford to close back in, and looking like another incident here for the 05 machine. This one coming up the mountain, and yeah, just gets on that curb a little bit the wrong way, right in front of John Crane, and tries to avoid him, but he gets into the wall a little bit himself. So a bit of a rough ride for both these guys, as Thompson tries to find a way to spin that thing around. And again, just excuse me, a lot of these sections of the track are just, you know, if you're a fan of Austin Powers, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's just impossible to get the thing turned around, and unfortunately Tim Thompson electing to bring that car into pit lane, and it's quite a long tow, so that's not going to help out his chances. But already back there in 8th place, and Booker is I believe out of this race, so not going to lose any positions anymore. But back out front, it is Brett Guzik leading this thing, as the lead is coming down a little bit. It's under 15 seconds now. Does Mason Smith have anything for this 04 machine before this thing is done?
So
as far as that goes, I think that Guzik might be just sitting there on cruise control. He knows he has a comfortable lead. As soon as it gets to uncomfortable, I think he's going to stretch that thing out and expand that lead back up again.
So as we come to the end here of this hour and a half main event, I guess you could say, it's going to take us over halfway through the season. Carl, taking a quick look at the schedule, what track are you looking forward to the most?
I mean, there's a lot of great ones on the schedule. I mean, you can look straight to the end of the schedule at the 2-hour finale that we're going to have there at the Road Atlanta mean, that one's going to be pretty epic there, as that thing is starting at sunset, and the race is pretty much going to be at night. So these guys are going to have to deal with the Road Atlanta track at night for 2 hours and at double points. This, I mean, you want to talk about deciding a championship, that race will certainly do that. But before we get to there, I mean, I'm interested to see a couple courses. VIR, Core has never visited VIR in any series. So interested to see the layout there at VIR at Virginia International Raceway. See what that has in store for the drivers, and the Indy Road Course. The Indy Road Course is another one that I believe we've only ventured to one time in the in Core. So see how those guys will handle that one, and I believe it has a slightly different layout coming out onto the main track there. So yeah, those are probably the two that I'm eyeing up. But I mean, every race that's coming up, you got Mosport next week. You know, it's a fan favorite for a lot of drivers out there, and especially our Canadian brethren out there. Like you got Curtis Kelly from Canada, obviously Dane Simpson from Canada out there in the field as well. You know, Lime Rock, that's going to be just a tight little technical track, and almost kind of like you know, like your Laguna Seca. Like, you don't want to get off the track at all, because as soon as you do, you're in the grass and you're just going to keep sliding and sliding and sliding, and it's going to feel like you're forever to stop that thing.
As you're saying that, Brett Kusick just came in for his pit stop.
What about you, Terry? What course or two courses are you looking forward to the most for the rest of the season?
Well, I don't think I've actually seen VIR yet, so that's going to be a fun one to look forward to. Out of the listing that I see there, Lime Rock is one of my favorites. It's a fun little racetrack there. So, and we've been on it many a time. So yeah, that's one that's going to be quite interesting there.
You stole my answer. I was going to say Lime Rock too.
I think the biggest thing that's going to help these guys out is they don't have to tackle, you know, some of these tighter tracks like Canadian Tire. Canadian Tire's you know, a little bit wider, but it certainly has its technical sections. Lime Rock is definitely a little tighter, and you really need to have some precision to get through some of those corners. And you know, these guys are now just going to have to deal with an entire field of GT3s instead of having to worry about those GTPs kind of coming through there and trying to figure out their way around and pass cleanly if they can. So I think that's certainly going to help, and especially even at Road Atlanta, like coming down through those S's in the GT3 is bad enough, but if you got a GTP hounding you down, it's rough. And I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and you know, that's another track right there in Road Atlanta where they run the Petite Le Mans in real life, and they do it here in iRacing as well. And it's a grueling little race, and it's got the at least last year it had the LMP2s and the GT3s, I believe, or the GTEs. I have to take a look, but it's multi-class racing either way. And coming down through those S's when you got you know, a car that's slower than you or faster than you, it can get really scary. It looks like most of the field, at least the top half of the field, making their second pit stop here. And the way it's going to shake out is the top six will be Brett Guzik, Mason Smith, Chris Hamilton, Jimmy Covert, Matt Goring, and Pau Casca. Those are your top six overall, and the top six in the GT3 Pro. And then the next three in line are your top three in the AM, and that is Curtis Kelly, David Tilford, and Joe Hoggard. And you have Ryan Pendicio, who is 7th in the Pro. He's 10th overall. Dane Simpson, 4th in the AM. He shows up next. And then 5th place in the AM, 13th overall, is Craig Potter. So another good run here for the 616, as you see him there a little bit earlier as Jimmy Covert went to go by. And you know, even though it's during the day, you can still, you know, flash your lights, and if guys are paying attention at all in the rearview mirror, you see that, and it's kind of a you know, warning, like, hey, I'm a little faster. This is a warning that I'm going to be trying to pass you, and it's just common courtesy to kind of, you know, help that guy get around, especially if you're not running for position and, you know, you're maybe out of it one way or another. It's just the kind of the gentleman thing to do. Obviously, Dan, you don't experience that at all in the oval scene, so you know, it's I guess it's akin to you know, a lap car letting some of the leaders by, but certainly don't flash your lights. because according to the movie Cars, they're just stickers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in iRacing, it's a little hard to stick your hand through the little gap in the window net on the left side, but a little finger outside of that gap in the window net is kind of all you see in some real life road racing.
Well, the question is, what finger are you seeing, though, Dan? I mean, we need to maybe talk about the how are you racing out there?
Yeah, good old thumbs up. You know what I mean? That little bump in front. Hey, good on you.
Yeah, we need to get you one of those bumper stickers. How's my driving? And there you go.
Yeah, there's times when you're other driver's favorite fans when everyone's giving you your number one symbol.
Yeah, absolutely. It may mean different things around the world, but I think it's kind of a universal language of what that means. We'll just leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that.
Everybody gets on sale at Walmart. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yep. Even for Jamie McMurray, but yeah, exactly. So for everybody out there, I mean, what you got? This thing is now past the hour mark. We got 30 minutes, well, less than that to go. We got about 28 minutes left in this race. Yeah, Brett Guzik with a nice sizable lead there over Mason Smith. Do you think Mason has anything to try and charge him down? Do you think Mason's just kind of content here with a second place? It'll certainly be a good showing here, dropping down into the GT3 Pro and coming out with a first and a second. And then, kind of a little bit of the same for Brett Guzik. Obviously, not the first race that he wanted to have, finishing towards the back, but coming away with a win nonetheless if he gets done here. And then you got Curtis Kelly and Joe Hoggard going 1-2 in the first race and possibly 1-2 in the second race. But your points leader, David Tilford, has something to say about that. He is running second place right now. So we got who you watching for. What do you want to see for the end of this thing? And you think there's going to be a surprise yet in store? Do you think there's going to be a driver that's toward the front, one of the top drivers here tonight that's going to bend it here before the end? Certainly let us know in the comments, and we'll try and keep an eye out for it for sure.
As far as
We'll get there.
Oh yeah, as far as where we're at, we're actually about 120 miles west of Sydney, Australia right now. The first race was held in the early 1900s. It was between two cars. The race was put up by a guy named Dr. Machete. He persuaded two builders to drive from Melbourne to Bathurst, which is approximately 493 miles in a steam-powered Thompson.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you right there. By persuaded, the fact that his name is Dr. Machete, how... Well, let's not get into that. Let's not get into the particulars. I'll let you continue.
I have no idea. It's open for your imagination there. But unfortunately, they don't list a time on that race. I was actually really interested to see how long it would take two steam-powered engines to go 493 miles. So they've been racing in this local area for over 100 years now.
Nice little bonus. Terry's track talk right there, as we certainly appreciate it here on this endurance race. I mean, these things can get long and grueling for the drivers, but it's an endurance race for a reason. I mean, you need to have endurance to get this thing done, and we're getting to that point now in the race. I'm assuming, guys, it's about to be go time. I mean, you got almost a half hour left in this race, but if you're not in the position you want to be in right now, you need to start making that charge.
Yeah, if I was
we need to have a little thing here in the booth. Raise your hand if you want to talk.
Yeah, exactly. No, if I was Mason, I'd be pouring on the power right now, trying to close that gap to what Guzik would feel uncomfortable and hope that he makes a mistake.
Dan, now's your time.
I'm getting nervous. As soon as I start talking, somebody else is going to. No, I got another question for you guys. Carl, we'll start with you. So taking a look at the AM class and taking a look at the points, who has surprised you the most?
Well, I mean, right out of the gate, we haven't talked about, or we haven't seen Joe Hoggard and Curtis Kelly all season, but they come in last week at Watkins Glen and pretty much put on a show. I mean, Hoggard dominated at Watkins Glen to a win in the class. Curtis Kelly had some mishaps here and there, and almost actually lost it to a hard-charging Brett Guzik as he was able to run through the field, obviously starting in the back as the points leader. But both those guys have started off with a good showing. But I mean, I got to give it to the 12 of David Tilford. Right now, he is running in first place, and it looks like that is due in part to Curtis Kelly making his last pit stop. He already made his splash and dash pit stop. But I mean, Tilford has not let these guys really check out that much in this race. He did a good job in the first race as well. So he's got a bit of a mix-up. Losing some guys that were kind of ahead of him in the first half of the season in Brett Guzik and Derek Sherman and Hal Kaska. Doesn't have to deal with those guys anymore, and comes in here as the points leader, starting last in the first race. Didn't really phase him. Drove up through the field pretty well, and now keeping this car nice and clean. And he's got the lead right now. It's probably going to shuffle out to a second place once he makes his splash and dash. But either way, a good possible double podium here for the 12.
And then Terry, I'm going to throw that question over to you for the AM class. Who surprised you the most?
Well, I'm not sure that I can say that England has really surprised me the most. Unfortunately, while I'm a commentator, I'm still kind of partial to a lot of the guys that helped me during the development series. So some of the names that I'm seeing are at the lower end of the list are almost disappointing me, and I'm waiting for them to actually start to move forward.
Well, that could certainly be the question maybe to ask then, just flip it the other way. Who is the one that's disappointing you the most? Who's the one that you think is kind of underperforming right now? It's okay. We're in the trust train. Call them out. Call them out. They may yell at you later in Discord, but that's fine. It's what we. Sometimes a little drama is fun. Especially because you're saying it, not me.
Let me go ahead and take a look at the listing of where the drivers are at, and I'll let you know here in a second, because my screen unfortunately doesn't show who's in what division, so it's kind of hard to tell by certain names if they're in the AM or not. I do know as far as AM that got me kind of wondering. Of course, we were in the development series together. Is P. Fishias. When we're running down the same track, we're always about mid-pack. Lately, I've seen him down at the bottom of the pack a little bit more than normal. So yeah, I'm hoping to see that he moves himself forward a lot.
Well, Carl, I'm going to throw that question right back at you. Who have you been a little bit disappointed with in the AM Series?
Well, I'm not going to say the AM Series. I'm actually going to go to the Pro Series. And one of the guys that moved up for this race here tonight, and I'll give you one guy that moved down. And the one that moved up, Derek Sherman. He gets off of running this race. I know for the guys over here at Corey ran with Jimmy Covert and Larry Hensley, and they just ran this Bathurst 12-hour, and to see him kind of struggle. We take a look back at the race results from the heat race in earlier here tonight. Finishes with a ninth place, and now you see in this race here not really doing much better. I mean, he's down there in 10th place, and it's not what I expected. I mean, maybe he took a chance with that Ford and it bit him, and he's struggling because of it. But I expected him to come up here and be competing for a top 5 here right out of the gates. But a little bit of a rough showing for the 52, and then the other one right in front of him there is Kevin McCann. He comes from the GTP class as that one got pushed the wayside, and I thought he'd be up there competing a little bit, but a rough night for Kevin McCann as well, as he's going to finish this one here in 9th place. Both of those guys have retired from the race. So, you know, I expect more. I mean, the Mountain, again, can claim drivers very easily. It claimed me. It claimed Mark Thomas's brake pedal. I mean, so it claims drivers and equipment. You know, so it can happen very easily. But the first race out here for these guys in some of these different classes, different divisions. Obviously, the guys moving from the AM up to the pro, you know, like your Guzik and your Casca, they are, you know, they already kind of had their footing in these cars for the season. So, you know, some of the guys moving down from the GTP, you expect them to be a little bit better drivers, like your Mason Smith or Jimmy Coverts. So it makes sense that they're kind of catching on pretty quick as well, though. So I think it's time for us to throw it to you now. So who are the drivers that are disappointing you, or maybe that you're surprised? You know, either way for both the AM and the pro.
All right, well, somebody from I'm going to start with the AM. They're not too high up on the points, but I know they came into this GT3 and they're pretty unexperienced with the car, but they come out every week. They're pretty mad at themselves because they seem to mess up, but they're still determined to get out here. They're always in the driver's chat apologizing for whatever mistake they made. But this driver comes out, constantly tries, and personally, except for tonight, I think he gets better and better every race. And that is going to be Derek Booker. I know the first race we had of the season, he was so mad at himself, and I know tonight he's pretty disappointed in himself, but he ran all 6 races, he comes out every night, and he tries his best. So that's somebody I'm actually pretty impressed with. Because when you suck at something, it's really, well, that's pretty neat, but when you struggle with something...
You heard it live, ladies and gentlemen. Derek Booker sucks, according to Dan Stein. There it is. Put it on your poster board.
No, but when you struggle with something and to keep working at it, you know what I mean, that shows real courage and initiative, and I think that's worth being said. Now, somebody that's been a little bit disappointing, or maybe it was a little bit of strategy, was Brett Guzik in this first race. I mean, I know he's got a decent, 13-second lead on the field right now, but that first race, he just couldn't seem to maybe figure out the track. I don't know if that was strategy play, I don't know if that was trouble in traffic, but I think that was pretty not expected to see in this first race tonight.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to what you said about Derek Booker, it takes a bit of dedication, and that's what some of these guys have. Not just Booker, but you know, even going back to your guy Terry, you talk about Abiy Vishwavasan. He's another one that, you know, he came in here in through the D series and just kind of plugged away. You know, he knew he wasn't the fastest, but he came out here week in and week out and just tried to get better. You know, Tim Thompson, I could say the same thing about him. Every week he comes out here and tries to get better. You know, you see a lot of times guys get into a league, get into a series, and realize right off the bat, oh, well, I'm not a top 5 car, I don't have a chance of winning, I'm not going to run. I'm going to find another league. And you're not doing anything, any kind of justice to yourself by doing that. Sometimes, sometimes it pays to be a back marker. Sometimes it pays to be a mid-packer, because you're not going to learn anything by getting into a league and dominating and going out there and winning every week or running top 5 every week, because you're not getting to learn off anybody else. You are the fast guy in the league, so everybody's going to learn off of you. You will learn off of a lot of guys if you're only good enough to be running, you know, mid-pack or in the back of the pack, because you got all those guys that you can drive around every week. You know, whether it's you're racing around them in the race or after the race, maybe you save the replay and watch it. Okay, it seemed like he was really better than me in turn 3. You know, why is that? Is he braking differently? Is he shifting? Is he grabbing a different gear? Or even on the ovals, you know, it seems like, you know, he's really getting off the corner better. Is he getting on the gas earlier? Is he letting the car roll? There's a lot you can learn, but if you don't ever get out there and you don't put some practice laps down, you're not going to get any better. And, you know, not for nothing, you're going to be stuck in those leagues that are, you know, all the bottom feeders. And, yeah, you'll be the big fish in a little pond, but that can get old pretty quick, too.
Yeah, I do agree. And that's what one great thing about this league is sometimes, like with our special events, we'll have people actually in the chat room just chatting away, and we'll be just doing our thing, and then all of a sudden they notice that you're in a position where you're never usually at, and they're rooting you on and giving you ideas and things like specifically I remember a All-Star qualifying race where I ended up finishing third while bouncing off the wall, fighting for first and second. And as I'm getting right there to that point where I'm about ready to start going in and battling these guys in the last 2 laps, everybody started telling me what they would be doing. And it was making me actually run that much harder. I probably never would have put myself in a position where I would have just bounced off the wall because I knew I was in the race once I had that third place sewed up. But at that point, third place wasn't good enough. It was going to have to be first place or nothing, and that's what I went for. And I had the backing of all of the core guys right behind me, pushing me on, trying to get me to get to that spot.
And that's, you know. Go ahead, Dan. No, go ahead, Dan.
I think there's something to be said with that. I mean, back when I was running in the Premier Series, I think we did the trophy trucks. I think it was at Dirt Bristol. And by some grace of God, I qualified on the pole. First off, the turn in my pants was massive coming to the green flag. But just that satisfaction you have knowing that you can compete with these high-level guys, I think that's a better feeling than beating up on the small fish, as you were saying.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, I still get it myself. I mean, you know, I may be considered by some, you know, to be one of the top guys, you know, in Premier and Core or whatever, but, you know, when I go to tracks that I don't feel like, you know, I'm a top guy and I can beat those guys, you know, I get to a road course and I can beat, you know, a Nick or a Mason, or I get to a dirt track and I can beat, you know, some of the dirt specialists, or I go to a dirt road and, you know, I can beat guys like, you know, like Dane Simpson. You know, he's one that does really well on the dirt roads. Chris Hamilton, you know, he came into Core from running dirt roads, so when I get to beat those guys on those kind of tracks, that's rewarding. I mean, that's fun. That's better than, you know, me hopping in, you know, an ARCA series or a truck series where it's, you know, some of the you know, the lower level guys, not saying ours is, but, you know, in like a different series. And, you know, just going in there and beating up on guys. Like, hey, don't get me wrong, it's fun every once in a while, and I do it occasionally, you know, maybe once a year, once every couple years, where I'll hop into a, you know, a completely different league just to see how I can compete against other guys. But, I mean, what I like about this league, and, you know, of course, yeah, I'm biased, you know, being the league owner, but there's a lot of guys that are willing to help. And, you know, they're willing to help to the point where they'll put up a session, or they'll watch you in your own test session and talk you through things. You know, whether it's a road course and they're trying to talk you through, you know, what they're doing throughout the entire lap. I mean, you know, you look at, for instance, me and Paul Butler worked together last week, getting him ready for the Bathurst 12-hour, and I walked him through every single corner of this track, and, you know, here's where I'm braking, here's the gear I'm taking, this is why I'm on the inside of the corner, this is why I'm driving through the middle. You want to try and do this, you do that, and you know, there's a lot of guys in Core that will kind of sit down and do that with you. And, you know, whether it's on a road course, whether it's on the ovals, there's a lot of help out there. You just got to ask. You know, most of the time, somebody will step up and certainly help you. And you don't get that in a lot of leagues. You know, a lot of leagues, guys are in there just to race and then leave, basically, and that's what I like. There's I feel like a lot more camaraderie here in Core than in a lot of other leagues.
And that goes over the real racing too. I mean, you'll find a couple guys that might help you out here or there, but the majority of people definitely keep their tips and tricks and little secrets to themselves. So it's, especially in the racing atmosphere, it's really hard to find that.
And if people would just realize, you know, of course, yeah, you know, if I'm better than you, Dan, at a track, you know, do I want to beat you? Yeah, of course I want to beat you. But, you know, I realize that helping you out is going to mean that it's going to be a better race overall. You know, if you're out there and you're flailing, you're struggling, you know, not only could you cause a caution and an inopportune time for me, but, you know, if I'm going to lap you because you're that bad on the track and I didn't reach out to help you at all, and vice versa, that caution could involve me. And it's just those little things where if everybody helps each other out, and it could just be, you know, one or two little tips that just, you know, help out, like, hey, you're braking too hard into the corner. You know, it could be everywhere. or you're really turning in too hard and you're killing the tires turning in. It could be just something, you know, small like that can just help a driver out, not just on one track, but, you know, everywhere. And you create a good group of drivers that not just, you know, can run around each other, but trust each other too.
Yeah, exactly. And it causes them all to work together real well. And I remember another point, another time where we were racing Mazdas. It was a large group, and everyone kept pitting and pitting and pitting, and I was staying up there in the lead. I didn't need a pit yet, and there was times when I was surrounded by Mazdas, and I was like, guys, I'm not comfortable in this spot, and someone would come through and give me a nice bump to push me out up in front. Unfortunately, that race during one of the cautions, I went and blew my motor, but you know, it was still a great fun experience, and knowing that everybody that was there with me had my back in one way or another.
So we are under 10 minutes to go here at Mount Panorama in this 1 hour and 30-minute endurance race. And I gotta tell you, ever since you said it's hammered down, Terry, it has been hammered down for Mason Smith. That lead has gone from 16 seconds. It is now down under 10. It's at almost 9 seconds, 9.1 as we stand right now, and still dropping. He's got 10 minutes to get it, and he's got to gain about a second a minute here. It's going to be a lot of work here. He's going to have to gain, I mean, basically 2 seconds a lap at this point to get this thing done. So it's I think going to be too tall of a task to get it done, but certainly Mason Smith has his ears pinned back, and he is trying his best to try and run down the double win here, try and get to Brett Guzik. We'll try and see what the distance is as they go through the final part of this track, and that right there is not Brett Guzik in front of him. That is the 63, I believe. So we'll show you coming out of turn 1 here. It's going to be 2 cars in front of Mason Smith. Is the gap that he's going to get is down to 8.8 seconds there at the line, as Mason is running almost a second faster than Brett right now, but it's not going to be enough at that pace right now, as we got 7 minutes left in this race. So you figure about 3 to 4 laps left, and still cannot see him quite in his sights just yet, but certainly doing his best to run him down. And I think the other case is over here. David Tilford is still your leader over here. He is yet to make his final pit stop, as the rest of the guys in the GT3 AM have done so. Curtis Kelly in for his pit stop on lap 30. Joe Hoggard makes his pit stop on lap 37. And then Dane Simpson has yet to pit as well. But what does Tilford have in store here? Does he make this thing last a little bit longer and then make the pit stop right at the end and just take that splash? Does he come in early enough? Still staying out there right now. Does he have enough to make it to the end, is the other question. I mean, judging by everybody else, he pit on lap 27, and a lot of those guys are still out here on the track, but I don't feel like he's going to have enough to get it to the end. I feel like this is probably the lap that he comes in, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, probably about 2 laps ago, coming to the line, or the final turn, turn 23, Murray's Corner, I think we had the 95 go around and knock the wall pretty hard.
Yeah, we'll take a look right here. And this is Matthew Goring coming into the final corner. And steps on him a little bit, tries to save it a couple times, spins it out, and then backs it into the wall, and that's going to bend that rear spoiler of the Ferrari up just a little bit. It's going to make it a little difficult for these last couple laps for Goring. Looks like he entered the pit on the next lap, and he's working on getting that fixed and taking the fuel that he needs to get to the end. But by the time he gets it fixed, it may be race over for him. So he's going to drop a few positions here in the pro class. Already down into 7th place right now, and still one more on the track, and that is John Nominger. So he may end up falling down into 8th place before this thing is over, but Again, taking a look here at David Topher. We'll see if he comes in this lap. Chris Hamilton in this lap. He surrenders third place up in the Pro Division. Still got Guzik and Smith. They have yet to pit as well. So, I mean, Guzik's got that big lead, but if he can't make this thing on fuel, we could have a pit cycle come out here, and if you don't get in the pits or out of the pits correctly, it could get very interesting here before this thing is over. But looks like Hamilton comes out. He's going to be behind Covert, who has yet to pit himself, and we've seen Covert certainly try and stretch a fuel sometimes too, so you never know what's in store with that 14 as he moves into third place right now. Tilford will bring the 12 into pit lane this time by, and we'll see where that drops him.
That was probably a good idea considering he was mowing the grass right before going into the pit.
Yeah, absolutely. As we take a look at the 56 coming out of the final corner right now, the 13 right behind him. So right there goes the 56, and now the 13 is coming by. Going to be close coming out, but it looks like the 13 of Hoggard is going to get by Tilford. So Tilford will come out third. So it is going to be Kelly, Hoggard, Tilford, and then Simpson. Simpson has yet to pit as well, and now your top two are in the pits. Brett Guzik and Mason Smith in the pits, and it looks like Mason doing a pretty good job of getting into pit lane and maybe closing down just a little bit more. As we will take a look at the exit of pit lane. You see right in the front there, that is Guzik. Actually, I'm sorry, in the back right there, background is Guzik, and he is down and running. Nope, I was wrong once again. He was in the front right there. And you see that is the gap right there as Mason Smith comes out, and the difference now from Smith to Guzik is 5.8 seconds with about 2 laps to go. And we'll jump on board with Smith. And now you can see that 04 in the distance. Does it get him hungry in these last couple laps and just put in some burner laps? What do these guys do now as their tires are a little bit cold coming out of the pits as well? Does anybody make a mistake in these final laps as Jimmy Covert will come into the pit lane and give up third place as Hamilton moves back into third? This thing is getting very interesting here at the end with these late pit stops. As you know, it's kind of crazy. You're only a couple minutes from the end of the race, but you have to come in. I mean, if you don't come in, you're gonna run out of fuel. As right now looks like Dane Simpson, the only one still out there that has yet to pit. So can Dane pull off a fourth place here by kind of limping this thing home? Seeing on the dashboard there, I thought that was his fuel there at 0.00, but the dash not working here when we're right on board with these guys. Other than the lights there showing the shift points, but Simpson coming down the hill nice and even here, trying to get this thing home. He's got a pretty sizable lead over Potter, who is in 5th place in the class. He's got a 2-second lead over him. So I mean a 2-lap lead over him. So should be guaranteed a 4th place here, but it's just interesting to see if he can make this thing on fuel. As the lead down to 5 seconds, but it's not going to be enough here for Mason Smith as they take the white flag, and it is in sight. He could have almost got the double here done, but unless there's a mistake here by Brett Guzik on this last lap, Smith will finish first in the first race and then second in the second race. A very, very good showing, as we do have an incident late here in the race, but it involves the 44 of John Nobinger as another one down the hill gets claimed, and right behind him, Joe Hoggard comes flying through. And I think that just kind of, caught Nominger off guard there. Wasn't expecting that to happen, and crashed pretty hard coming down through there. But out front, coming up through the cutting for one last time, Brett Guzik just needs to keep it off the walls, and he will get it done here in the second race. Certainly can't say enough of how much of a better run this is for the 04 than it, I mean, it's like a different driver here, as we're actually not even live. He's already down through the downhill part, coming into Forest Elbow one last time, nice and tidy coming out of there. Just had to blip the throttle a little bit to keep it off that wall, but just got a couple more corners to handle. Even though the lead is down to 4.5, Mason made a heck of a charge, but Guzik just needs to really get through 3 more corners and seal this victory away in his first run here, first night, I should say, in the GT3 Pro for moving up. 2 corners left, and now 1, as Brett Guzik will bring it down, and he will get it done across the line in first place in the GT3 Pro Division. Mason Smith going to bring it home in second place. Taking a look back and coming down the hill right now is going to be your third place Chris Hamilton, as long as he keeps that thing straight as well. John Nominger already crossed the line. He will finish in 7th in the GT3 Pro. Dane Simpson, a good run, finishing 4th in the GT3 AM. As Hamilton coming around the final corner, your points leader going to go 2nd and 3rd here tonight at Mount Panorama. So a good run here for the 64 in both races is certainly going to help with that point situation. I mean, both the guys that are chasing him had a better finish in this race at least, but a good little damage control here, especially at the famed Bathurst. And hopping over now to Curtis Kelly as he comes down the hill, and he's going to have another good showing as he finished 2nd at Watkins Glen in his debut last week. He finished 2nd in the first race here tonight, and now he's going to cap it off with his first win in the Core Racing League, this one in the GT Series, and he's going to get it done here, winning the endurance race at Mount Panorama. Coming home 2nd after winning the first race, Joe Hoggard. So Hoggard goes first, 2nd, or sorry, first, 2nd for his first 3 races in the GT Series. And then David Tilford going to bring it home in your 3rd podium position. So, I mean, guys, I'm impressed. You know, we certainly had a couple little mix-ups, and you know, the top of the mountain claimed some people, coming down the mountain claimed some people, but overall, I think this ended up being a pretty good showing for both races for these guys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As I seem to say every week, it was a lot cleaner than I thought it was going to be. I don't think we really had much car-on-car action. So I mean, so they kept it clean when they were next to people. I think most of our incidents were either single car, or if they were multi-car, just, I mean, they bounced off the wall and came across the track. So I think some driver-on-driver racing went super well tonight.
Terry, what about you? What's your take?
Yeah, I agree as well. It was great, clean racing. Actually, at one point, I did see them go 3 wide going up into the hill around those corners and still managed not to hit each other, which, wow. I would have never even thought that was possible until I watched them do it.
So you guys got to, you know, experience a little bit of the 12 hours here at Bathurst, but now, you know, watching these guys race around it, and it's kind of a different perspective. So, you know, what's your take on watching the race as compared to being in it? You know, you get some different perspectives here.
Well, it's a lot less stressful watching it, that's for sure. I mean, there's a couple moments I'm clinging onto my seat, you know what I mean? But other than that, you got no pressure keeping your car clean or putting some good lap times down. No, but it definitely gives you a different perspective. It's interesting to see the different lines that people take. It's interesting to see the different braking zones, you know what I mean? The different pit strategies, you know, I mean, some of these guys waited to the end to do their splash and go, when other guys, you know what I mean, they did their splash and go a little bit earlier in the session. But it's definitely, a whole different ball game when you're watching it.
As Curtis Kelly goes and takes the jump over the tires. He managed to land it too.
Let's take a look at this. the famed Bathurst leap here, and yeah, it was certainly sticks to landing. I'm giving that thing at least a 9.8. I'm sure the French judge is going to probably give it about a 7.9, but either way, that was a good jump and a good landing by Curtis Kelly, and nice way to cap off the night. As waiting to see if these guys are going to hop into the channel here to get some interviews. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and start with our GT3 Pro Division, and we'll start with Brett Guzik, and Brett. No other way to put it. What happened the first race? I mean, the second race certainly panned out pretty nicely, and you kind of checked out and had a nice, easy cruise in the second race. But take us through your entire night.
Yeah, the first race, I can chalk that one up to not having any experience in the 12-hour. First lap going up the hill, didn't realize exactly how slippery some of the humps were. Going up the crest, and tossed it away there into the wall, and that basically ended my race for the sprint race. And then since we do the invert, I ended up starting third, I think, and basically just tried to control the race, just set a pace. I was just trying to run 204s pretty much most of the race, and we actually didn't even take tires at all, so we ran that whole race on old tires. I think we were down to 49%, I think, on the right front. So just try to maintain and be on cruise control. I don't think it was necessarily the best strategy based on what Mason was doing. Maybe pitting there at halfway of the race with tires might have been better, but I felt like if I could just stay on the old tires, the first two laps were not going to be too terrible coming from the the slightly used tires, and basically that was my only advantage over the cold tires. So really just tried to maintain. It looked like Mason had a bit more pace because he was on tires, so we just tried to hold him off as best we could. That's what happened.
And you certainly did that and grabbed the win here in the second race. So was it a relief to find out that you weren't going to have to deal with not only the mountain but the GTPs here tonight, as the GTP series gets thrown by the wayside and those drivers get moved down into the Pro Division? Was it a bit of relief to see that you wouldn't have to deal with those extremely fast high downforce cars trying to pass you in the mountain?
Yeah, that would have been pretty treacherous at this track. You don't want to be looking behind you at this track at all, pretty much. And, it at least allows some of those guys to join our crowd and put on one big battle. You have Mason, you got Nick coming in, you got, a few others, and it should be a battle from here to the end of the season. Absolutely,
and a good start, at least in the second race. We'll chalk up that first one to
definitely.
Yeah, it never happened. we'll make sure that's one of your drop races for sure. But
I'll pretend like I did that on purpose to start up front.
I mean, that's what we were saying. We figured you're just doing that on purpose to get the good starting spot in the endurance. But either way, a good run here in the second run. And anybody you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody who puts this on here at Core Racing Network, and thank you guys, the admins, thank all the race control, and just thank everybody who's running in this league. Yeah. And thank everybody for watching.
All right, well, congrats again on your win, and good start to your pro class here as you're trying to work your way back towards the front of the standings now in the pro class. So congrats, and we'll let you go for tonight.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Now we will bring in our second place finisher, and that is the 6 of Mason Smith. And Mason, you got it done in that first race pretty handily. You got out there obviously to a pretty sizable lead, and they were easily able to just kind of check out and put in cruise control. The second race, obviously having to drive from the back, and you made your way through pretty quickly, and it took a little bit once you got to maybe the top 5, but you got your way into second, and you were 16 seconds back, but you started reeling in Brett Guzik. Did you think you had a chance once you got into second place, or do you think it was just too tall of a, no pun intended, mountain to climb?
I think at like the 5-minute mark, it was just too little, too late. Yeah, it was just really hard getting through getting through the back of the field, and it's always challenging. And with these GT cars, I love them. They're easy to drive. I just think I wasn't able to close out tonight on first.
So you start off with a first in the first race, a second in the second race. Certainly going to help you out to gain traction back in the point standings. Obviously, giving up the GTP class and moving down here, it drops you into third in the standings here. But a good finish here tonight. I mean, you had Chris Hamilton right there as well, finishing second and third. But I'm sure I already know the answer. But you think you got something for him for the second half of the season?
Yes, I always do. And GT3 cars, I love them, and in fact, I mainly run them in IMSA Endurance, so it's a really booster for me and all the tracks that are IMSA related to the schedule.
So next week we head to Mosport. Is that a track you're looking forward to?
Yes. In fact, I'm actually looking to all four of the tracks. But if it were like a least favorite track I'd be interested into, it would probably be Lime Rock.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. But I think without you guys were in the GTPs, but looking at that track, if you guys were in those cars still and trying to figure out a way around these GT3s, it probably would be just as hard getting through them here at the mountain than it would be at Lime Rock, considering it's just kind of a tight little technical track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm happy with the change, and I wish seeing more people coming out here. We still got almost 30 guys in here, so that's really impressive through the first half of the season.
Yeah, and I figured it'd probably take a little dip here tonight, and not many people like the mountain, or even some don't even have the mountain here for Bathurst, but still getting 20 plus guys out here is definitely awesome, and now with the shift up, getting 10 plus in each division certainly helps out as well. But congrats on another good night here. But before we let you go, anybody you want to give a shout out to or thanks to?
Yeah, to you guys, the broadcast. I saw your subscriber count almost at the 400 mark. Congrats.
Absolutely, we're making our way up there. I mean, it's you guys put on the show. We just do the talking over the cars, but yeah, absolutely a good start here to moving down, and we expect nothing less from you. So we expect nothing less going forward as well. So we'll see you next week at Mosport.
See you next week.
At your second place finisher in the pro class, the 6th of Mason Smith. And now, Dan, we will give you the third place here in the pro class, and that is going to be the 64 of Chris Hamilton.
What's going on, Chris? I feel like I talk to you every week.
My hands hurt.
I'm sure your butt hurts too.
I wasn't going to acknowledge it, but okay, yes.
Alrighty, so with the removal of the LMP class, you got some more heavy hitters. Did that affect the way you drove tonight?
Not in the slightest.
All right, that's what I like to hear. All right. So with that points lead, you finished, I believe, second in the first race and third in the...
It was a 3-3 night.
3-3 night? All right, I apologize. But still a good points race nonetheless. The guy right behind you, Brett Guzik, had a pretty rough race, the first race, so you probably gained some points on him. But he did win the second race, so he might have climbed back into those points. Is there anybody you're specifically worried about catching up to you in the points?
Definitely the guys that got moved. Mason, I know he's a better road racer than me, and I had the luxury of not racing him, but now I have to race him now, and he proved that he closed that gap to Guzik. It was like 5 seconds by the line?
Yeah.
After starting in the back with me, and he's fast. So it's about minimizing mistakes, keeping with Mason if I can keep up with them, or if I can't, just getting good finishes. Like, I'll take a third on a day if it means championship by the end of it.
Absolutely. So this longer race, this hour-and-a-half session, what was your pit strategy? Walk us through that.
Just take every tires every time into the last one, because you're going to be in there for fuel anyways, especially at Bathurst, because this track is very unhappy. And I was playing it safe and came in with like a 20-second lead, both behind and in front of everyone I was around as far as position is concerned, and it was all pros at the front. So just play it safe. Don't do anything reckless, especially on this track. I had a Ghost 4X in there that Carl nudge nudge wink wink. Can you check out? It wasn't my fault. But the second one, it was just wreck avoidance. So I only got a 1X on the second one. Kind of sucks, but well, just if they happen, they happen. Go on, pack up, move on to the next race.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's always a pleasure talking with you up in here. Before I let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
A huge shout out to Ryan McCauley. He does a great job on these paints. He might either we got to get the CRN paints out to everybody. I think Carl has the link for those. Huge thank you to you guys for the broadcast and being on the car for tonight.
Absolutely, man. Well, great night, and hopefully we will get to talk to you next week.
All right, here's to Canada.
All right, that was your third place finisher, the 64 of Chris Hamilton, that in the pro class. And now, Dan, we'll go ahead and shift gears, and we'll give you the winner here in the AM class, and that is the 56 of Curtis Kelly.
All right, Curtis Kelly, it's the first time I'm speaking with you. It's a pleasure, man.
Nice to meet you as well.
All righty, so real quick, go give us a quick recap of your pitch strategy.
Well, I was trying to watch the count from the start of that endurance race there because I knew there was an off chance somebody would be able to save enough to only make it a, what would it be, two-stopper there?
Yeah.
I figured everybody was going to need to take the little splash at the end, and I didn't have it in me with the Porsche, or not the Porsche, the Ferrari. So really it was just run it dry as much as I could. I managed to eke out, I think, an extra lap over some people in the first and second stint, but not as much as I wanted. If I managed to get one more, I think we would have been able to two-stop it.
Okay.
But coming down to the final stint, I needed to get some different track position, maybe fall into a better draft there because I knew they were hunting me down, working together a bit. So once I had tagged the wall once hard enough going up the hill that I thought I may have taken some damage in the final stint, I decided to pit there and see if the fast would do anything and put what was it, 1.5 gallons, I think we needed to get there to the end. Okay. It was just the finest pit strategy today, and if it wasn't for Joe, I think having a few issues at the final corner coming down the hill, it would have been a lot closer fight.
Alrighty, so this is your second night racing with these guys in the GT3 series. What do you think about it so far?
I was super impressed tonight. It was very clean. Bathurst is always a scary track, and I had trouble taming it this weekend myself, so it was nice to come out and have a good time tonight. But I think I'll be back, gonna keep switching up with the cars probably. I like to run the Porsche if it's ever good, but that probably won't happen until Road Atlanta at the end of the season. But just looking forward to the competition, and nice to see that we have a lot more guys in the professional class. So there's a lot of competition all throughout.
So speaking of the rest of the season, is there any track you're specifically worried about?
Give me a rundown of the next three if you know them. I haven't actually learned the schedule.
Carl know better than me.
Yeah, we got Mosport next week. We got Lime Rock, and then we got Road America.
Very much looking forward to Mosport as a Canadian. That's a favorite track, and I'm always happy to see that show up. It's a really good track. If we had multi-class still, it would have been a great track for that because there's a lot of room for people to race, but still have the interaction that comes with multi-class. Lime Rock, I want to like it. It's a hit or miss track. You can have a really good day there, or you can just touch the grass and suddenly you've lost 30 seconds. And Road America, everybody's favorite corner there, Canada corner. I hope to not find the sand trap. But looking forward to competing with the guys, and it's fun chasing down the GTP guys. They're just a little faster.
All right, man. Well, congratulations. Pleasure speaking with you. Before I let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Big shout out to Core for putting this on, and you guys for watching us as long as it was tonight, and shout out to Joe and everybody else. David, they were very fast. It was a bit of luck tonight getting there, but Bathurst, you just got to keep it clean.
All right, man. Well, listen, you enjoy your week, and hopefully I'll get to see you up here next week.
Have a good one.
All right, that your winner in the AM class, the 56 of Curtis Kelly. Now, Terry, we'll switch it over to you, and we'll give you the second place here in the AM class, and that is going to be the 13 of Joe Hoggart.
Congratulations, Joe. Second place. How do you feel about that tonight?
I mean, I'm happy to find out that it's second place because I honestly didn't realize it was even going to be that close to the top of the AM group, but also pretty frustrated with myself, to be completely honest. I know I had the pace to be up fighting for a podium spot overall, and I just made too many mistakes.
All right. Well, it's good to be honest with yourself there, but don't beat yourself up too much. Still, second place in the AM is pretty darn good in my books. What do you think was the worst incident that you got yourself into there?
The first one, I had worked my way from 21st or 22nd or whatever. It was second to last because I finished second in the sprint. I had worked my way all the way through traffic and was sitting in second or third in the endurance, like 4 laps in, because I just hammered it. Maybe it might have been a little bit more, like 5 or 6 laps in, and then I came into the Forest Elbow, where I've been complaining about the way the car drives in Forest Elbow since I've been practicing, and came in and just got one of the lazy spins where lose all feeling in the wheel because it's gone so light, and then when I caught it, it just spun. Thankfully, nobody hit me and I didn't collect anybody. That was the good thing, but it was incredibly hard to actually get the car turned back around. So by the time I got it turned around and back going again, I had lost like 30 seconds. All of the progress and then some was gone. Yeah.
Well, back to front twice, one race. That's pretty darn good. Do you have any shout outs to anyone or special thanks to anyone?
Yellow Stripe Sim Sport. They're the racing team that I race with on a normal basis. DEP Graphics for making my paints. Next week you'll see me in a Ford GT, and probably for the remainder of the season. He's working on the paint for that right now. And then the broadcasters, you guys do a great job.
Well, thank you.
All right, Joe, we'll let you go, and hopefully see you next week at Canadian Tire.
Thank you very much.
That your second place finisher, the 13 of Joe Hoggard there in the AM class. And now, finally, Terry, we give you the third place in the AM class, and that is the 12 of David Tilford.
Congratulations, David.
Thank you.
So do you think you had anything for the front two, or were you comfortable where you were at?
Well, I was kind of forced to be comfortable where I was because I had a technical problem and only had like 95 to 98% throttle the whole race. So really couldn't catch anyone in the straights, probably losing 0.3, maybe half a second in the straights overall.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a car builder needs to have a talking to, right?
Yeah, definitely. Gotta
at least
take
the
the
rig
egg
builder
from underneath the throttle.
So, do you have any races that are coming up that you're looking forward to?
Well, next week will be a new one for me. And so it'll be an interesting week getting the track and learning. Got to put in some time. So, yeah, it's always fun to learn a new track. And then all the tracks after that are pretty much familiar to me. I don't know that I'm looking forward to any one specifically. Maybe the last one, the long race at Road Atlanta. I do like the longer format.
Fair enough. Before I let you go, do you have any shout outs or special thanks for anybody tonight?
Oh, my wife and my son for putting up with me doing this stuff, and to you guys in the booth, appreciate the broadcast, and to all the guys. And I would thank Thrustmaster, but they screwed me tonight. So I'm gonna see if we can fix that a little more. Maybe I'll get a refund on or additional sponsorship money. I'm not sure.
Fair enough.
All right,
Makes
David.
me hope that doesn't happen to my Thrustmaster tomorrow.
All right, David. Congrats on your third place run here tonight in the endurance, and we will see you next week at Canadian Tire.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
So that's going to wrap it up with the interviews here tonight. But yeah, I mean, takeaways here tonight, guys. We'll start with you, Terry.
Well, these guys actually made this track look a lot easier than it really is. They made it go from the blue hell to the blue peaceful drive, it looked like for a minute there. But overall, it was a great race. Definitely, it did look like it might have been pushing its way towards an exciting finish. Unfortunately, the race wasn't 5 minutes longer.
And Dan, what about you? What are your takeaways here for tonight?
I mean, I think that depends on who you ask if it needed to be 5 minutes longer or not. But no, overall, as I said earlier, I was really impressed with the driver-on-driver racing. You know what I mean? As Terry said, a couple times they were 3 wide. If not, they were 2 wide in the tighter sections of the course. And for the most part, you know what I mean, they kept the cars off of each other. I mean, there were some on-track incidents, but they were mostly just single car or just cars by themselves, either hopping up on some turtles or finding that mystery bump. But other than that, I can't wait to take a trip up to Canada next week. You know, it might be pretty cold this time of year, but I just can't wait to see these guys back on the track.
Yeah, man, you want to talk about freaking flyer miles? We're going from Australia all the way up to Canada for next week, so we certainly there's going to be a little jet lag, but we'll make it work. But yeah, I think my takeaways. I mean, obviously these guys did a phenomenal job. I mean, I know a lot of these guys probably have some experience coming off of the iRacing Bathurst 12 hours, but you know, these shorter races can be completely different. I mean, in the 12 hours, you're trying to just really be nice and easy and patient. And again, you're driving for multiple drivers, not just you. You're in the same car as other guys, so you're really trying to be cautious. But here you're driving a little bit harder, especially in the quick little sprint race there. You know, you want to make sure that you're getting up through as quick as possible, and then worrying about kind of settling in and getting clean, and then. The hour and a half endurance race, you can be a little bit more patient, but you've seen, Mason Smith just not enough. Just not saying that he was too patient, but even an hour and a half was not enough time for him to get all the way through the field and get up to Brett Guzik. But one heck of an effort. And the other takeaway is, Dan Stein causing a lot of broadcasters' curses here tonight, calling out a driver, telling him that he sucks. There's a lot to take away from this race here, but certainly. I mean, and then we even finished up here with David Tillard throwing his primary sponsor under the bus.
Yes.
So it's pretty fantastic. I mean, we definitely seen some bumping and banging out there on the track, and a little bit of a verbal bumping and banging as well. But this was definitely fun, and it was definitely good to be back here out on the track, and. We'll be out here tomorrow night, so I guess give your wives, your girlfriends their early Valentine's Day gift. Get your, we won't say what, but get everything done early, as we got 2 races on tap tomorrow night, and that is the ARCA Series and the Truck Series as they head to Bristol. So a lot of love gonna happen there, I'm sure, in the short track action there at Bristol. As
Coliseum.
Yeah, the last great Coliseum, as the ARCA Series is going to be there for 100 laps, and then the Truck Series going to wrap it up with 110 laps. That's tomorrow night. Then the Vintage Series on Thursday night going to be at the Rockingham for 100 laps. Then on Sunday, the Premier Series returns, and it is going to be the Mid-Season Classic. So no points on tap, but there are some cash winnings on tap, as the winner is going to get $40, second place going to get $10, as the V8 supercars, the ones we talked about earlier, are going to be on display or on an oval as we take the V8 supercars to Atlanta. And that one's sponsored by Kevin Foster. So thanks to him for that. It's going to be a 65-lap race there. And then back here, as we mentioned, at Canadian Tire next week. So back to the 45-minute race, and it's going to be the 45-minute races I'm liking, just because it's kind of right in the middle. It's right in that sweet spot where you have to be aggressive, but you also have a long enough race that you got to be a little bit patient too. So we'll see what these guys have for us north of the border. But that's going to do it for myself, Terry, and Dan here in Bathurst, Australia. We'll see you at the track.